What's poppin', y'all? Welcome to Chip and Zay here on Texas Sports Unfiltered Tuesday, and it's about to get cold up here in the ATX, but appreciate y'all as always for rocking with us. Like, subscribe, you know the deal. Download the app, help us help you. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, ready for this jam-packed Tuesday. No Texas basketball this week, so that's a little different, but if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, you should be hyped because the ATX Moody Center is hosting their annual Spurs games here in the ATX, and Kevin Durant will be in attendance because the Spurs will be playing the Phoenix Suns on Thursday. And Rodney Terry mentioned today in his press conference Zoom interview that KD was at practice. So that's always a good thing when KD, who loves the University of Texas, gets to come back and, gets to get all the flowers that he deserves, but also gives back to the game. That's very important to the university and the program, especially for somebody as big as Kevin Durant. Like, KD doesn't necessarily have to do it. You see a lot of these athletes out here that don't go back to their alma maters very often. And hell, KD was only here for 6 months. So for him to come back as much as he does and to be an impact, that's a very big deal. And KD also went viral. A little clip on X/Twitter went viral of him because the Netflix special, you know how they always do the starting five and receiver and, just all those documentaries where you can see the background, who they do a really good job at that. I love all of those, stories, quarterback, etc. Shout out to Peyton Manning and his Omaha crew, but they did one for this past Olympics. And KD, watching that clip where he's talking about the love of the game and how much it means to him. We're going to play it later when homie Chip Brown gets on, whenever that is. Shit, Chip, so CP time for real. So, rock with me for however long till Chip gets on. But again, back to KD in that clip, which I haven't watched Going for Gold yet. That's one of those I probably got to watch for my wife and wait because she likes seeing that, like the camaraderie of guys off the field and off the court and see how they operate in their lives. Like she enjoys that. They be bringing the wives in and stuff like that. It's a good bonding time because, again, I be doing stuff. I be getting my brownie points with her. We just finished Love is Blind, which I ain't gonna lie, like, she ain't listening right now, but that's my shit. That's my shit. I ain't gonna lie. Y'all know I love, man. Like, don't get it twisted. Your boy, sports #1 priority, but when it comes to trash TV, I'm all about it. I'm still trying to understand what the hell's going on with that Spanish show and homeboy getting his girl smashed and they're just watching it. Like, I don't get that yet, but I don't know. Hopefully there could be an American version sooner or later, but enough about me. Let's bring on the other half of Chip and Zay. Finally, there he is, the great Chip Brown.
What's going on? Hey, in the immortal words of Judy Brown, happiness is a choice. We're happy you're spending some time with us on a Off the Rails Tuesday. Yeah, man, I'm still getting used to this. But we're getting there. We're getting there. It's going to happen. We feel it. Feel it coming. Zay Dog, what's going on, my man?
What's up, man? Nothing, just talking nonsense before you jumped on. I was telling the people that Netflix, they just dropped their Going for Gold documentary about the basketball Olympics this past year, where it's kind of like a receiver and quarterback and starting five, where you could see backstage access of all of the pros and how they went about the Olympics. And Kevin Durant, who is in Austin because the Suns play the Spurs in the annual San Antonio Spurs 2 games in the ATX at the Moody Center event. He has a clip, man, that's gone viral that I'm going to have to play for you later that I've never seen Kevin Durant that emotional in my life. Like it's a
What are you
minute
talking
clip.
about?
He's talking about just what the game's done for him and what the game means to him and where it set his family up. And I got it right now. It's not like a right call type of thing, but yeah, let's play it for the people because man, it's deep.
You know what that tells me?
Mm.
Tells me that he's at that point in his career where he's savoring every moment, he's savoring every memory. A 22-year-old Kevin Durant, a 27-year-old Kevin Durant, a 31-year-old Kevin Durant probably doesn't get that emotional. But think about his journey, Zay. Think about where he's starts off in Oklahoma City. It looks like they're going to be the young team that's going to rise up. It comes apart. Durant opts to go to Golden State, wins 2 championships, wins 2 finals MVPs, but takes heat for it. Then he goes to Brooklyn in the what the F decision probably of his career to build around Kyrie or build with Kyrie, who, you know, COVID, whatever, was never in it. Yeah, Seattle. Forgive me. He started in Seattle, where his mom lived with him.
Yeah.
And they'd play video games together at campus, he and Wanda. But he's been through all this journey and ups and downs. You can tell, man, this has been an emotional roller coaster. Like his journey is totally different from like Steph Curry's Steph Curry, who's been at one place the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Became the picture of 3-point shooting in the league. It's just different. And I'm here for it. I want to check this out because, I can't get enough of KD because we were with him when he was just, learning to walk as a man. And that kid, his love for the game is so unquestioned. And we saw it from day one. I love it. This guy, all he wants to do is win. He's a good teammate. I know he's been weird and sensitive about, burner accounts and listening to what people say about him, but he's a good teammate. He's all about those guys in the locker room, and that's why he's a legend.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, it's tough to watch. Like, I had to man up going through that because I can feel my face like, damn, man. And I've seen it like 3 or 4 times. Like, I've seen this clip, came out yesterday. That Going for Gold documentary just came out today. So I'm going to have to check that out. But how emotional he is. Like, he knows this is the last ride. Like, he doesn't have many years left to play this game. And we've talked about it before, Chip. Like, what's he going to do when he hangs him up? Because I don't think he has the patience or just the, handling the stress that comes with being a coach. I don't think he's that type of guy. I also don't think that he's going to be like Shaq or Barkley and be an analyst for, NBC, ESPN, TNT, etc. Like, he's not that type of guy either. Like, he'll rather debate different things, which he doesn't really like to debate. Like, he kind of hates on other people's debates on social media when they tag him and stuff. Like, he'll fire back on you in a heartbeat. In a way he loves it, but also he hates the game being disrespected. And he talks about it all the time, how old heads, guys who played in the 90s, Jordan era, Magic Bird era, they disrespect the game because they don't like where it is. Hell, even guys that are still playing are disrespecting the game, i.e. Draymond Green, who came out and said how boring it was. And like, bro, you're a part of the problem. If there is a problem, if you and your Warrior teams, you setting illegal screens to see the greatest shooter in the world go crazy, like, I don't really understand where Draymond was trying to go there. And Oscar Robinson had to check his ass, which what CB was referring to. Oscar Robinson was like, what's Draymond really done besides pass to Steph Curry, which, Big O, I feel you. That's cold. I like a good hating moment, but also Draymond, he's going to Springfield. Like, he's a Hall of Fame guy.
You think?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That dude in his hay was guarded 1 through 5, matchup nightmare. Like, he's only 6'6", but his ability to be as versatile as he was. Now, he ain't the Draymond that we saw in 2017, 2018, but the rings put you on a different pedestal. And him having 4, he might not be first ballot, he might not be second, but he gonna get in sooner or later. But yeah, like Kevin Durant, never seen him that emotional before in my life. Like, it was very humbling to see because, KD, again, he knows that this is the last ride. He knows what this meant for his whole family and his mom and just how close they've been. Like, that's all he's known is hoop. All he's known. So whenever he has to leave the game, like, I could see him go playing in China just for, craps and giggles. Just because he loves the game and he knows probably at age 42, 43, he could still put up 20 in one of those Asian leagues or European leagues somewhere. And just because he loves the game and, he wants to see what that's about. Like, I would not be surprised. But, yeah, I'm going to see if I could get out to that game on Thursday. There's a couple of seats left. If not, I'm definitely going to tune in. But I thought it was very mindful and special for the NBA to see with how the Spurs going back to Austin, like, we got to make sure Kevin Durant's playing in one of those games for what he's meant to the program, even though was only here for 6 months. Like, the dude loves Texas, and I'm glad he was in practice today. RT talked about that in his Zoom presser. Like, whenever you see KD, if you're someone like Julian Larry or Jordan Pope, maybe you need that. Maybe you need Kevin Durant letting you know, hey, bro, just go out there and hoop. Just go out there and play. Like, I get it. Tough times right now, but this team needs you guys. Like, do your thing. Yeah, you hear it from Frank Haith. Yeah, you hear it from McClain. Yeah, you hear it from RT. But when Kevin Durant says something like that to you, that should give your game a different jolt. Like, that should put you on a crazy high. Like, oh, Kevin Durant believes in me. Like, I'm representing the program he was at. So, yeah. I appreciate seeing that from KD. Very touching moment. I love him getting to his, sensitive side. We need more of that in sports. Everybody trying to be so masculine and tough all the time. It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. My man Hank South probably cries every once in a while,
Hey, let's see. Let's see if he does. I mean, he's a pretty tough dude. Hank,
tough dude.
What's going on?
Not much. How are y'all doing?
Oh man, just chopping it up on a Tuesday. Of course, Hank South of Horns 24/7 recruiting czar joins us every Tuesday at 2:15. Appreciate that. And Hank, we're in a interesting time right now as Texas continues their winter conditioning. We're still waiting on a spring football schedule. But recruiting, give us the latest, because some of the coaches have been getting a little off time. How would you describe the scene right now?
Yeah, so I think right now it's February after National Signing Day, even though nothing happened on National Signing Day. Coaches get a little bit of a breather. It's a dead period in recruiting, so kids can't visit campus. Coaches can't go to the schools and see the kids. So really, it's an opportunity for the coaches to catch their breath, take a little vacation, and then get back and get ready for spring practice or whatever the spring practice calendar looks like this year. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It doesn't mean recruiting stops. We're still seeing offers go out. not that many, but, the recruiting is still happening, even though it is a dead period. Coaches can still contact recruits can still contact coaches. It just can't be face-to-face in person. So, they're still FaceTiming with kids, reaching out to kids. But again, with the coaching staff being on vacation, it's a little less frequent, I guess. But, I think they're mostly getting back into the office, getting back into the swing of things. So you can expect maybe that to pick up, maybe see some more official visits get scheduled. We're already seeing, I have a list on my sticky notes right here of the official visit dates, and it's well over 15 already for the summer set in June. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Obviously the news that Tashard Choice leaving for the Lions, that kind of puts running back recruiting a little bit in flux. They still have the guys they like, but obviously the next running backs coach is going to factor into the, guys they take at that position. So, might see some new names pop up there, but, we saw one top running back target, Xavier Crowell from Alabama. Right after the choice news broke, he put out on Twitter that he was canceling his June 6th through 8th official visit. So I actually reached out to him. He said Texas has been talking to him since that news. And he said, depending on who they hire, he might put it back on the calendar. So, everything's kind of up in the air right now. But, once that running back position gets filled, we saw Mark Orphy get hired. We'll start to see things really kind of come into place. We'll see spring visits get set for March on official visits. Texas has that kind of a second junior day of sorts in April, the Longhorn City Limits. We'll see that. I'm guessing that's still going to happen. I haven't heard of a date for it yet. So yeah, things will be picking up, but right now it's a little bit slower than usual.
The recruit who said he was canceling his visit to Texas, how highly regarded is he? What do you think of him as a prospect?
Yeah, so he reclassified. It's interesting. He reclassified from 2027 to 2026. So he should technically be going into his junior year of high school, but he's going to be going into his senior year now. But to put into perspective of how highly he was coveted, he and Javian Osborne were the only two running back recruits for Texas that had official visits scheduled. So I think that kind of shows you that those are kind of the two priorities. There's been other guys like KJ Edwards, who I think is still a high priority target. And then Amari Latimer, who we've talked about from Georgia, he didn't have an official visit schedule. I think Texas was kind of falling off a little bit there. So he was one of Choice's top two targets outside of Osborne and EJ Crowell from Alabama. Really talented kid. The kind of consensus thought for him was Alabama was going to be able to keep him home and get him to Tuscaloosa. But he seemed really interested in Texas. He took a visit last summer. I think he's visited twice. But I would imagine Texas would get him in on an official. It's not like these kids are held to 5 official visits now. They can take as many as they want. So it's just a matter of finding, maybe a midweek or a weekend in June, or maybe even in the spring if Texas wanted to do that to get him in for an official. So, yeah, big-time player. I think let me see what they moved him to, because obviously when kids reclassify, their ranking will drop a little bit. I want to say he was the number one back in 2027. Now he is – okay, so we have him as a 4-star. He's not in the top 247 right now, but the number 15 running back in the country per 24/7 Sports. So really talented kid from Jackson, Alabama.
Hank, you put out a really good article on Horns 24/7. I don't want you to give everything up that you put in that article. People, y'all go and subscribe to Horns 24/7. Y'all want to check it out. But it was about the possible candidates for the next running back coach at the University of Texas. Talk about a few that were on your list in that article.
Yeah, so, when we started the list, I think, and it seems like it was pretty widely thought of, but, Rashad Samples from Oregon, obviously ties to the Texas program from his time under Tom Herman. His dad's obviously Reginald Samples, the head coach, legendary head coach at Duncanville. He makes a lot of sense, really young. He's 30 years old, but he's coached in the NFL already. He coached Kyron Williams on the Rams when he was a rookie. Then he went to Oregon, obviously has had success there. He was on the list early. Keenan Hall, the Baylor running backs coach, he was one of the top names on our list. Still think he's in contention as well. But obviously, a guy with Texas ties from Dallas. The running back is escaping me right now, but the freshman running back Baylor had this year was a 1,000-yard rusher. Can't think of his name at the top of my head, but Keenan Hall obviously was coaching him. and obviously is a young guy as well, 36. Lately, or the past like 24 or so hours, been checking around. I posted some notes over at Horns 24/7, but a name starting to generate some buzz is Norval McKenzie, the running backs coach at Georgia Tech. And so, you look at Tashard Choice coming from where he came from Georgia Tech to Texas. That worked out really well. McKenzie's a guy that he's been a coach for a long time, was at Vanderbilt, Louisville, Arkansas State's at Georgia Tech now. He's a name I've heard connected to the job. I don't know how serious it is at this point, but I have heard his name connected. And I did uncover too, he actually interviewed for the Penn State job as well. So it looks like, he's looking at opportunities elsewhere for himself. And then, beyond that, the Nebraska running backs coach, EJ, I think his name is Barthel. He was tossed around. He just signed an extension with Nebraska. So, I'm curious to see which direction this goes. I still think, McKenzie's probably a close name to watch. Keenan Hall, Jordan Scruggs on Horns 24/7 had Keel McDonald, the Chargers running backs coach, as a name to watch. So, there's a lot of different directions they could go. I'm curious if it's going to be kind of an outside the box thing with Sark. I think Mark Orphy kind of, he wasn't on anybody's original hot board and, didn't really have any ties, at least to the Texas program. He's from Houston, so, has ties to Texas. So I'll be curious to see which direction this goes, hoping to uncover a little bit more as the day goes on. But yeah, I think, Sark is obviously looking for a coach that's, going to be there for a minute, not just, a guy that's going to come kind of like Tashard Choice, a guy that can, be on the staff for a few years, eventually get other opportunities, but someone that's not just going to be a one and done type guy.
Yeah. How quickly do you think Sark needs to move? Like from a recruiting standpoint, is it, there's no one's signing tomorrow,
Yeah.
but, you do have the portal window coming up in April. You kind of want to get this done and get them in for spring ball, right?
Yeah. I think you absolutely want them in for spring ball. And it is going to be important. Like you mentioned, the portal window, Texas doesn't just need to keep recruiting high school. They're going to probably need to recruit their roster too. People don't want to hear that, but these guys, for the most part, all committed to Tashard Choice to play for him. And that's not to say they're not committed to Texas for Texas as well. But, you have to make sure that meshes. And I'm not hinting at anything impending. I'm just saying that's just the reality of today. So you definitely want to get someone in as soon as possible. In terms of high school recruiting, as long as you're just keeping in contact with these kids, I don't think it's a huge deal. I talked to a couple of recruits that, they're still talking to Texas frequently. It might not be the running backs coach, but, other coaches can recruit other positions as well. And obviously Sark is recruiting also. So I think, you want to get it done before spring, but I don't think this is like this massive urgency. You want to get the right guy too.
Hank, Mark Orphy coming in from Rutgers to replace Blake Gideon. Talk about his impact and what it means now for the new Texas secondary coming in 2025.
Yeah, I kind of an outside the box hire. When the job first came open, I talked to one source that said, it's going to have to be somebody that's close with Perry Joseph, in terms of, who they go after. And so you kind of look at the connections between him, where he's been and everything. Obviously they went Orphy. So not a ton of connections to Texas, but, I talked to one, I reached out to, so I used to cover Alabama. And so he was at Alabama as an analyst in 2021 for a year. And so that was, the year they had Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, and then a guy that's kind of lesser known but made it to the NFL, Jalen Armour Davis from Alabama. He went to the Ravens. I've checked with all of them. They're all busy, so I'm not getting a ton of quotes from them. But they seem to all have really good things to say about him. They said they were impressed with him. They liked working with him in the year they had with him at Alabama. Don't have a lot of ties at Rutgers, so I'm not sure how he did there, but obviously he was successful enough there to get noticed by Texas and Steve Sarkisian. So I'll be curious to see kind of where he fits on the staff. Is he going to be cornerbacks? Is Terry Joseph going to go to safeties and coach like he did with Notre Dame? How is that going to kind of mesh out? But I think it's a nice hire, and interestingly enough, that he has the ties to North Shore High School. Texas doesn't usually get kids out of North Shore. Maybe this could be that guy you have there that can help that talent, that talent pipeline come towards Austin a little bit more. So, another guy that, you would imagine a guy like Mark Orphy is going to be at Texas for a few years at least. depending on how, I think any coach coming in to coach the Texas secondary in 2025 is probably going to look really good with the talent they have. So it's like a win-win for him. I think he's going to look really good. So, but I think he's a guy that's probably in it for not the long run, but, a guy that you can count on being on the staff for a few years that obviously helps with the recruiting as well.
Yeah. I mean, Hank, the fact that, and CB was giving me a hard time. Why are your Lions trying to destroy, the Longhorns, going after Choice and Torrey Becton? But
they tried to go after Chris Jackson too. They were interested in Chris Jackson as well.
Right. Yeah. And the Jags came after Chris Jackson again.
Yeah.
But this is what happens. I mean, you covered Alabama. When you win, people want to bring in your coaches. And this is a sign of respect, believe it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy to think I don't know how many coaching changes we covered at Alabama over the years. Like, it felt like every offseason, at least 5 or 6 guys from the on the field staff were getting promotions elsewhere. I remember back in 2019, the meltdown that ensued on our message board when Saban brought back Sark as offensive play caller after he got fired from the Falcon or got parted ways with the Falcons. Like, that, people were not happy about that. Like, the terrible hire. And then obviously, they were wanting Sark when Saban retired. So, these coaches are pretty good about, they have connections all over the country. They know who's the big names. Texas isn't going to go get anybody that's that's not gonna live up to the expectations. So, but yeah, that's just a sign of the healthier program. If coaches are coming, if NFL, if other colleges are coming with promotions, that just goes to show you're doing something right. So, as Texas keeps this thing rolling and, if they continue to make the playoff, this is going to be a yearly thing that people have to get used to. I think when you look at it, the core coordinators Sark has, I can't think of another big time college program that's been able to keep Kyle Flood's the offensive coordinator, Sark calls the plays, but, their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, and their special teams coordinator for as long. They've been with Sark the whole time. So I think that just, when you have those guys all intact, obviously there's going to be a lot of consistency. The other pieces can kind of fall into place. But yeah, it's just something you have to deal with.
Hank, talk about offensive tackle who signed with, committed to Oregon, Cody Green, that Texas is still trying to make an impact on.
Yeah, there's this class. Last class was obviously, there's some top end talent with Fasusi and Lamont Rogers, Ty Haywood, those guys. But this seems like a really, really good class, in-state and out. Cody Green, he got a Texas offer a few weeks back. Texas went out to see him. They stopped by Mater Dei High School. Obviously, they have a commitment from not a commitment. They have Brandon Baker on their team, who's probably going to start next year in some capacity. So they recruit Mater Dei really well. When he got the offer, he said, he was locked in with Oregon, but he did want to take an official visit to Texas. Looks like that's going to happen. I know he just did an interview with Tom Loy on 24/7 Sports, kind of talking about that. So, that's one they're going to be in heavy contention for. But I think, you look in-state, you really don't have to go far to get a lot of these guys. Felix Ojo, we just saw him at Under Armour Dallas a couple days ago. That kid is really, really good. I didn't see him lose a single rep. He got MVP, or he got invited to the Under Armour game. They gave another kid MVP, but, he was the MVP as well, co-MVP in my opinion. He's really good, huge kid, really flexible. He's just really good. I'm not great at describing offensive linemen, but he's and then you got John Turntine, who's the other big time offensive tackle at North Crowley. There's some debate on, does he project interior? I think you just want to sign him. He's a kid you just want to get. You got Max Wright committed, who's the massive offensive tackle from Melissa High School. So this is going to be a class, they didn't sign as many as they wanted in 2025. We saw John Mills flip late to Washington. They wanted to keep John Mills. So, this is going to be probably a pretty big offensive line class. And there's a lot of top end tackles. There's a lot of really talented interior linemen. So really, they're not just going to take anyone just to take anyone, because there's some guys that are worth waiting for, worth getting them in on official visits and trying to get them this summer.
So Hank, when you go to the Under Armour event in Dallas, who's there? Like, are coaches trying to get a sneak peek of what's going on?
Yeah.
Are they allowed, or how does that work?
So no, it's funny because like coaches that have kids that are recruits can go because they're obviously their parents, so that's like kind of like a loophole. So usually there's like one coach. I don't think there was one there this year, but I've been like, when I went to Atlanta a few years ago, Will Muschamp was there. His son was a quarterback recruit. Mike Bobo had a kid that was a big time tackle recruit. Brian Harsin was there one year. So anyway, they can go if they have a kid, but otherwise it's a dead period. They can't go. They can't be off campus and contacting. But I think college coaching staffs pay close attention to how those events turn out. You see the kids that do the best at those camps end up, their phone blows up. They get a bunch of offers after the camp. So they pay attention. They just can't be there. But yeah, Under Armour invites all the, big name kids that they can out in that area. So there were a few no-shows, like Caden Finley, Jermichael Finley's son. He was supposed to be there. He didn't go. John Turntime was supposed to be there. He didn't go. Max Wright, I was told, had the flu, so he couldn't go. It sucked because it was at his high school. So I was excited to see him compete. But, still big-time names like Felix Ojo competed, Drew Evers, another big-time offensive lineman, Zayden Crimpin, who Texas really likes along the offensive line. But yeah, they just, they go through drills, they get some coaching, then they do some one-on-ones. Usually takes a couple hours for each position group. So it's a fun event to be at. It was actually fun like run-in I had there. Jason Witten has a son at I think it's Liberty Christian. I could be wrong. There's a Christian school in Argyle, Texas. His son's name is Cooper Witten. He's actually a composite 5-star safety in the class. He's like 6'2", 210, probably going to grow into a linebacker if he takes after his dad a little bit. I was talking to him on the sideline for a while. Awesome guy to talk to. He was saying, you would imagine, Tennessee is probably going to be heavily involved for Cooper Witten, but he was saying he's letting him do his own thing. He wants him to do his own thing, and they really like Texas. He doesn't have a Texas offer yet, but he said he's been talking to Johnny Nansen a lot, and they liked Blake Gideon a lot too. But obviously Gideon left, so that could be an interesting one. I bet you they visit here this spring. He's 2027, so it's still really early, but it's always fun to see like kind of who you run into. Aaron Williams was coaching defensive backs. That was kind of cool. The former Texas defensive back.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's always kind of who's who there. A few years ago, what's his name? Roman Harper was the DB's coach, and talked to him when I was covering Alabama, kind of got his thoughts on some of the Bama guys. So there's always a few, people that you're like, oh, wow, that they're here, that are at these events.
Yeah, that's wild. Was there one player who just blew you away?
Yeah, I think Felix Ojo, he had, offensive linemen don't get to shine a lot. Like he was clearly above, and he was above the rest in terms of the offensive line group. Who else? Zion Robinson. Trenton Yancey. He's a 2027 wide receiver. I just got tagged in a tweet from his trainer. That kid is an absolute freak. I think he's going to contend for one of the best wide receivers in the class. And then a guy Texas just offered recently from Frisco, Donovan Webb. He's a big-bodied safety. He was all over the field. They were not having a lot of success. And the quarterback group wasn't great. There were a few big-name kids, but Donovan Webb really, really looked good in coverage. They were having a lot of difficulty getting separation from him. And he's a guy I think Texas is probably going to end up really pushing for as well in this class. But yeah, I think Ojo is probably the MVP of the camp in my books. But Webb and Yancey and a few of those other guys were really, really good.
Okay. Hank, just want to get your thoughts on men's and women's basketball. Obviously, recruiting there. For women's, you get Aaliyah Crump, big time player, and for the men's, I can't remember the brother's name that's coming in, but he's not a McDonald's All-American or anything. And plus, with RT and where he's at right now, I'm sure these high school kids are a little hesitant.
Yeah.
To Texas. Talk about that a little bit for us.
Yeah, Chris had that stat on Sark and PK and Florida the longest tenured. That's interesting. I was bummed. I was driving back from Dallas after the Underdog game. I had to follow the Texas women's game, kind of just updates on my phone. I couldn't get the stream on my phone for whatever reason. Probably not safe if I did that anyway, but it was fun to follow it and see the comeback. Just as it was refreshing. But yeah, 3 top 10 wins in a week. I think they had an argument for number one. I get why they don't have it, but I think it's hard to argue anybody better than Texas right now, Texas women's. It's got to help with Aaliyah Chavez, I think. Her camp's kind of gone underground. Obviously, they're about to be in the playoffs, Monterey High School in Lubbock. Maybe thinking about going down if they make it all the way to the Alamo Dome, trying to get an interview with her, see where she's at. I'm pretty certain at this point she's just waiting until her season's over, and she kind of is going to be maybe the last wave of high school commits. So I don't think anything's like imminent, but you got to imagine at this point it's Texas Tech, South Carolina. I think those are kind of the main schools she's considering. But yeah, you got to imagine that Texas playing the way they are is really, opening her eyes at the possibility of being in the class. So I think Texas is in good shape there. They're as in good a shape as they can be, I think. Men's, like you mentioned, John Clark signed. He's coming. Obviously he's not a huge name recruit. He's been hurt for most of this season, so he got dropped in the rankings recently. Still in the top 75, I think. But obviously size. Texas fans you need size in the paint. So certainly a welcomed addition. I would imagine. It is probably very difficult recruiting because they're kind of in a weird window where is RT going to be back next year? So I'm sure other staffs are using that to negatively recruit Texas as well. So it's kind of just a tough situation. You just kind of have to hope to keep winning games and stay relevant enough to keep interest up. But they're still working on guys. Nate Mint, the 5-star, Koa Pete, the 5-star forward from Arizona. So there's still other guys out there that they're still working on. And obviously I think it'll probably be another pretty big transfer portal class as well. If they do make a move at head coach, I would imagine most of the next year's roster will look from the portal. So, other guys coming back as well, but portal heavy. So yeah, it's kind of a wait and see there in terms of recruiting.
Well, and Hank, you wrote about Daniel Jeremiah's latest first round mock.
Yeah.
And 3 Longhorns in there.
Yeah. So I thought, obviously we can't write every single mock draft. There's like a million of them, but I thought it was notable from the point that, you look at last year's draft, the Bills had an opportunity to take Xavier Worthy. They traded their pick to Kansas City. Kansas City took Xavier Worthy, and obviously he had a really strong season. They lost in the Super Bowl, but it wasn't his doing. He had one of the games of his short NFL career. But yeah, so he has Kelvin Banks to the Bears at 10. That kind of seems to be a pretty unanimous spot for Banks right now. It's either that or the 49ers at 11, I think. Jahdae Barron's kind of established himself as kind of more of a first-round lock type. He has Barron to the Bengals at 17. And then he had Matthew Golden to the Bills at 30. So it's kind of, the Bills have an opportunity, whether not taking Worthy, taking Keon Coleman was a wrong move or not, any perceived wrong, they could right that this year by taking Golden. So, he wrote that Matthew Golden's the perfect receiver for Josh Allen. So we'll see if they decide to do that late in the first round. But yeah, only 3 first rounders. There's been buzz at times with Cam Williams. I haven't seen his name in a first round mock in a minute. Obviously, all this is going to, be dependent upon, combine stuff and pro days. So that's going to push guys up boards or push down. So we'll see if Quinn can shoot his way up into maybe a late first round, early second. But yeah, I think he had Abdul Carter, the Penn State edge rusher, number 1. So Cam Ward, number 2 to the Browns. And I think Shadur to the Raiders at 6. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting draft.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Zay, you got one more?
Nah, Hank. Terrific as usual, my man.
Appreciate it, guys.
Hank, appreciate you, man. Doing great work over at Horns 24/7. So much content going on. Got the Texas baseball home opener tonight. We got all kinds of stuff for you. Get over to horns247.com. Hank, let's do it again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you.
All right. Hank South, bringing it as always. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zay, because I want you to react.
Well, I've been seeing a lot more of Kelvin Banks not being a single-digit draft pick, which is odd to me. And I get it. It's between him and Campbell at LSU on who's going to be the first tackle taken. I see a lot more Campbell going before Kelvin in the mock drafts that I've seen. So I wonder why. Like, why is that? Because, again, Kelvin Banks, this was the first year we've seen him injured. Freshman, sophomore year, he was basically healthy the whole time. I don't think he missed the game, didn't miss a start. And then you fast forward to this past season, and he gets hurt against A&M. Trevor Gooseby comes in and does a really good job. You know, he doesn't play in the SEC championship game. So I don't know. You know, like no one really played great against Georgia. So are they seeing that and using that as the negative film for Kelvin Banks, which we all know, Texas fans, Quinn Ewers wasn't moving well, especially that first go around. And Sark wasn't really putting him outside the pocket either. So, yeah, Kirby Smart had a really good game plan. And, yeah, those Georgia guys, no pun intended, but they some dogs out there. But I don't know. I just feel like Kelvin Banks at 10 is a steal to me. Maybe that's biased, but he's always seemed like a top 7 pick. And the fact that he's kind of dropping out. Hell, Chip, I saw him in like the high teens on someone's mock draft, like 17, 18. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Which we're bitching from a yacht here. Like, that's still really freaking good, all things considered. But where Kelvin Banks, you know, was what we've thought of Kelvin Banks, for him to be in the double digits, that's a little interesting to me.
Yeah, I think that'll get sorted out after the combine.
Okay.
Let's see if those numbers start to change based on what we see at the combine, because I agree with you. I think Kelvin Banks is, I mean, we've had Dan Neal come on the show, you know, Dan Neal, former All-American at Texas on the offensive line, 2-time Super Bowl winner, who just said, you know, Kelvin Banks is going to be a 10-year pro and a regular Pro Bowler. So yeah, he should be at the lowest number 10. I mean, those guys are so hard to find, and you know, it kind of bothers me that he'd go to the Bears, where they definitely need offensive line help. And but yeah, I think he's a top 10 pick for sure.
Here's what your favorite draft analyst, Mel Kiper Jr., said about Kelvin Banks and why he's fallen a little bit. He says, we thought Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas would be in the mix, but he had some hiccups, we call them, right? Some inconsistent performances, banged up later in the year, didn't have the type of season you expected from him to be a top 5 pick. We thought maybe he'd be in the mix to be the 2nd or 3rd pick. That didn't happen. So it opened the door for a guy like Josh Simmons. Who the hell is that? That's what Mel Kiper Jr. said like a couple of weeks ago. I don't see it. I don't know what we're talking about here. I mean, Big 12, SEC, yes, there's a jump, 100%, but also there were a lot of times where Quinn Ewers did not move well at all. And you're like, Quinn, what are you doing, bruh? And the ball should have been out of his hands, but it wasn't. And Kelvin Banks did his job, and some of the other guys too, from Jake Majors, DJ Campbell, Cam Williams, Ian Connor, etc. And Quinn still got sacked. or the play got mucked up or something. Like that Ohio State game, it was Cam Williams getting ate up all game. Left side was cool. JTT, Tuamula, whatever homie's name is, he wasn't doing much. It was Jack Sawyer and them boys attacking Cam Williams. So again, I know we're biased here, but also I don't see it. Just trying to be as objective as possible. Like I didn't see much of a drop off besides him being hurt. If we're going to use the injury as a thing, like maybe he's injury prone, which is also BS, then okay. Like I don't agree with it, but that's one thing. But to say his play wasn't what we expected this year,
Well, and I thought Will Campbell at LSU got exposed a little bit this year because, he had Jaden Daniels back there a year ago. Jaden Daniels can make everybody look good.
Right.
And when Will Campbell had to block for a pro-style passer and Garrett Nussmeier, it wasn't as good. And that's why Kelvin Banks won the Outland and the Lombardi. So I don't want to hear about Will Campbell going ahead of Kelvin Banks. That doesn't make any sense. Please tell me Kuiper doesn't have Will Campbell going ahead of Kelvin Banks.
I haven't seen his mock draft lately. I think he does, though.
Yeah.
I think he does. And again, what I just read from the quote that he said, like, okay, I guess, but also I didn't see him getting exposed much, like if at all. Like that's a very weird thing that's kind of going around.
Yeah, let's see how that looks after.
Yeah. Kuiper has Will Campbell to the Bears at 10. I don't know where he has Kelvin Banks.
Okay. Yes, Roy, PSA baseball, Texas baseball has been moved up from 7:30 to 5:30 because of forecasted inclement weather. So 5:30 now for the home opener against Houston. Freshman righty Jason Flores will be on the mound for Texas. This game is supposed to be on SEC Network Plus. If you have that as part of your package.
That's just ESPN, right? ESPN Plus, isn't it?
Yes. Okay. Yep. Just go fish around in that ESPN Plus library of whatever's live at 5:30. Yes, unlike on Sunday when they played at 6:30 and it went till 11. I'm still recovering. Like it was hard for me to get out of bed this morning. I'm like, so still shortage. When you get old like me, Zay, you gotta get your sleep. Otherwise you're, it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
So yeah. Texas baseball fans tonight. We'll get a look at some of the new faces for the Longhorns up close and some of that facial hair. Yeah,
let it grow. That's what I'm talking about, Schloss. Let it grow. Let them be a man.
I had a source say, Augie Garrido never would have allowed Jared Spencer to have that hair all the way down to his shoulders.
It was a different time.
I
get it.
I give Schloss credit because he said 15 years ago, I probably would be a stickler on this. And no facial hair like the Yankees, but he's bartered. He told him, get that GPA up, no issues off the field. We'll let y'all express yourself.
Yeah, let it roll.
But if things start going the other way, get those razors out. Get those scissors. Get those scissors out.
Yeah, we're chopping hair too.
Right.
Like we're gonna be as clean cut as possible. We gotta get that discipline back in there. Why is that just a baseball thing? That's where my confusion is. Like, why do you just get those type of rules in baseball? Like, you don't see it in any other sports.
Baseball's so weird.
It's weird. It's a weird game.
I love some of the dudes who play baseball, but some of the stupid stitions are just stupid. But that's what makes baseball baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball, a lot of times, gets in its own way, in my opinion. But I am excited about Texas baseball because I think they got some really talented young players on that team. They brought in some really talented transfer talent. So let's see what Jason Flores is, a true freshman from Wiley, and this will be fun. We always want to see who Schloss thinks among his freshmen are the real deal, or guys who can hold up in that starting role. So let's see no relation to Jalen Flores, by the way. But Jason Flores, right-handed freshman from Wiley, will get the start tonight at 5:30, not 7:30, 5:30 out at the Dish for the home opener for the now 16th ranked Longhorns.
Okay, they moved up a little bit.
Yeah, moved up.
We'll take that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take that.
Yeah. I think the big question, I think they got offense. The question is, how will they settle into that pitching rotation? Is this going to be like a Johnny Altstadt tonight so that he can take a look at a lot of pitchers? I mean, Houston's been pretty good. They're 2-1. They went 2-1 against Minnesota to open their season. So
I don't mean none. Minnesota, they can't even play right now because it's snowing up there.
Those teams are so happy to get down south and play a game outdoors. But yeah, you're right.
I heard the Missouri softball coach bitching about not being able to play and talking to, NCAA and the suit and ties that make the rules for the schedule and saying, we got to push back the softball schedule. We got to push it back because we're still getting snow right now. Hell, the reason why the games moved up today is because the weather's going to be crazy here in Austin, Texas. So I can feel what she's saying, but the petty side of me is like, that's why the best go to the warmer states. So they ain't got to deal with that. So if you don't want to go to Missouri, you're one of the best softball players, come to Texas, where it's hot a lot more than it is cold. But I feel coach. I don't know her name, but yeah, that came up on my feed the other day, and she was like, we gotta make some change. My girls, we don't get to have a full practice. We're practicing indoors. And we don't have the resources that we would want to make indoors manageable and make it make sense for what we need to accomplish in practice. And I was like, damn, I ain't think about that. So how do you feel about that? How do you feel if the baseball and softball schedule was pushed back? So maybe March, where everybody had a fair, the same advantages. How do you feel about that?
No, they're not gonna bend for the Midwestern and Northern schools. I mean, they've always catered to the programs in Southern California and in the South, in the SEC. Honestly, Missouri was a weird addition during realignment in 2011. But yeah, the rest of the schedule, the power programs are going to be like, screw you guys. When you start going to Omaha and winning, you might have a voice, but we're not holding things up for you.
Yeah.
By the way, the weather, it's supposed to rain like thunderstorm at 4. So
damn, hell no.
It's they're gonna be dodging it tonight. Yeah, it's supposed to
make sure you got the right cleats.
Right. And then the winds are good. I mean, this is going to be nasty. So they're saying 65% chance of rain starting at 4, and then it'll wind down, but winds will make it feel colder, and the temperature is going to be dropping to around 44 at 7 o'clock. So this will be kind of like that game that Keegan Kavan and Nigeri Kennedy had to pitch. But it'll be tough conditions, but hopefully Longhorn fans will get out of there. We'll get out there and cheer these guys on.
Yeah.
Minnesota, right? That's how they say it up there, Minnesota. All those hard vowel sounds. Hard.
Yeah, they say their O's crazy too.
Yeah, about.
Ooh, I can't even do it.
It's almost like Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, it is Southern Canada,
basically.
Minnesota.
Yeah. Okay, I got to address something. What we were talking about earlier, we were talking about KD and stuff, and I mentioned Draymond being a Hall of Famer. My man Chris said he disagrees with my statement. Draymond should not be in the Hall of Fame. If we're going to go by rings, shouldn't Robert Horry and Horace Grant be in the Hall of Fame too? I hear what you're saying, Chris. Appreciate your take. Appreciate everyone's take here. But Draymond Green has 4 All-Star appearances and like gold medals. Horace Grant has 1. Robert Horry has none. That means something. So what Draymond's done individually, even though basketball is the team game, that's going to get him in the Hall of Fame too. Again, Draymond, we just think of crazy. I stomp on your chest. I'm ready to fight, punch the hell out of Jordan Poole Draymond. Like, if you take all the crazy crap out and just think about his career as a basketball player, the dude's really freaking good. Really good. Like 4 All-Star appearances, that's tough. Like, you're a really good player in the league. A lot of guys getting 1 is something. 4, like, that's not a mistake at all. And again, Steph, the man first. When they got KD, he was the man. Then it was Clay. Draymond's always been third amigo, fourth amigo. But the accomplishments speak for itself, man. Like, yeah, I'm a little biased, fellow dark-skinned brother, but also, but also you got to give Draymond his flowers. Now, he's just crazy as hell. That's the thing. This ain't all there.
I mean, I'm just saying, Hall of Fame is for the greats.
Yeah.
We don't want it to be the Hall of Very Good.
Yeah.
We don't want to be.
Why the hell's Michael Cooper in there?
He could defend.
You're right. I agree, but
hey, Lynn Swann. I mean, some of the guys who were on championship teams got a nice ride in because they had some good highlights in big games. Not sure Lynn Swann should be in there, but everybody on that damn Steelers team in the 70s got in. So I'm still waiting on the 90s Cowboys to get in. Guys like Darren Woodson.
Yeah, like Darren Woodson.
All-time leading tackler in Cowboys history. Can we get Woody into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Hell, we still don't have Tommy Nobis in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And you heard John McClain say that the Pro Football Hall of Fame has changed up the way that they're voting now. You got to get 80%. Now, this is part of the reason you got the smallest Hall of Fame class happening this year. But, I mean, I'm not opposed to making it tougher for guys to get in because you do want the best of the best to get in. But I respect your opinion, Zay.
Yeah.
So should Bill Laimbeer?
Hell no.
What?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're comparing Bill to Draymond? Which I guess there's a comparison. They're both dirty. They're both dirty ass players. So yeah, they're synonymous with one another in a way. But nah. Unfortunately, Bill Laimbeer doesn't make it.
He doesn't make the cut.
Edelman, I would say no, but talk about a guy that got it from the mud. Like Julian Edelman, he wasn't supposed to be here at all. Like
Kent State.
Yeah, Kent State quarterback, wasn't he?
You talk about a guy who, finagled his way in, taught himself how to be a receiver, like got on that jugs machine and that dude's a 30 for 30. Yeah, Jamal Charles should get in. Hope he gets in.
Yeah, what do you have? The best yards per carry average ever?
He broke Jim Brown's yards per carry average, career average.
Yeah, put Jamal in. Jamal was so cold, man. God, that speed was so different.
He could cut in space like Gale Sayers. He just had unbelievable feel for when to cut at full speed. He was that dude was so much fun to watch.
What did Mac do with Jamal Charles that was questionable? I feel like I should know this.
He almost benched him in 2007 for Vondra McGee. And that's why Jamal was like, I'm out of here. Same with Jermichael Finley. Both of them were like, our talents are better utilized in the NFL. They were the first ones to kind of break the mold of everybody sticking around for 4 years under Mac. And then Earl Thomas was like, holla. Then dudes were leaving left and right, partly because of the meltdown that happened after 2009. But CB remembers it. It was looking grim, and they're playing Nebraska in 2007. And part of the problem was they weren't running plays that Jamal totally excelled in, like zone read. And so Colt McCoy goes out for one play against Nebraska. John Childs comes in, they run zone read, and Jamal takes it for 25 yards. And this was in the fourth quarter when Texas was trailing. And then they ran zone read with Charles like 15 times, and he finished with 214 yards rushing in the fourth quarter, I think, or 180. He ended up with 200 plus yards, and almost all of it came in the fourth quarter. And that's when it was like, oh, maybe it's not Jamal. Maybe it's just the play calling. Maybe we got to call the plays that he runs best. That was unbelievable. They fumbled their way into winning that game. Like, it took Colt McCoy leaving the game and John Childs coming in and them thinking, okay, Childs' best play is zone read. Oh, it's Jamal Charles' best play too. Okay, he ran for 180 yards in the fourth quarter. And Texas came back and won the game. So, hey.
Special.
Oh, man.
I didn't know until recently that he had like a learning disability too. Like, I had no idea that was a thing. And he talked about how like a lot of people didn't know that about him, even like growing up, how just he didn't see certain things in school that others did, and he didn't get the help that he probably should have needed, and like how it was embarrassing for him and it was hard for him and he didn't like to talk about it. Like, he is very open about it now, which is pretty moving, because there's a lot of kids that are probably dealing with the same thing. Well, that are dealing with the same thing that Jamal Charles has gone through. And for him to be a voice for those, individuals, good on him. Like, I had no idea until I saw that recently. he did some interview talking about it, and I was like, man, that's a great success story, because that guy, put him in the Hall of Fame. He should be there. Canton, like, he should be there. He was that good. And it's running backs. Like, their life in the NFL is so rare, you know?
Yeah, that game, that was crazy. And it was the week before that game against Baylor where Jamal got sat down for Vondrell McGee. And then against Nebraska, they figured it out. They got their heads out of their backsides. And Jamal ended up running for 290 yards in that game, and 180 of it was in the fourth quarter, or 214 of it. Okay. Yeah. It was unbelievable, because they were losing that game. They were down 17-9 going into the fourth quarter, and they ended up winning it 28-25. And Jamal had touchdown runs of 25, 86, and 40 in the fourth quarter. So 150 yards in touchdown runs alone in the fourth quarter. And it was all because John Childs came in for one play. They ran zone read with Jamal, and he just started going off. And it was one of those games that you'll never forget. And then you're like asking the coaches, so about that zone read, that answer any questions about Jamal Charles? Sometimes you just got to call the plays that they run best.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, Chip Kelly figured that out.
Yeah.
Like, that's what turned Ohio State season around. They started running all that counter stuff with Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson, and those dudes took it to a whole nother level where they were getting stuffed on the zone reads, all that stuff against Michigan. I had to take a look in the mirror, realized, all right, maybe we should do some things different. How do we go about this, guys? Now they're national champions. Ain't that something?
Well, everyone remembers the spin move touchdown run that Jamal had against OU. But I also think back to when I think it was AJ Hawk intercepted VY in that 05 Ohio State game. Jamal was a freshman, and Jamal laid him out. Like, everyone thinks Jamal's this wiry guy, track guy. Jamal's a dog. He's from Port Arthur. Like, he will fight you. So,
you've been to Port Arthur?
Hey, I've been through Port Arthur.
Port Arthur.
And I talked to my man Todd Dodge. You know, and Jimmy Johnson's from Port Arthur.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, it's a tough area.
Yeah. Yeah.
R.I.P. PMC.
Yeah,
Bud
Jamal.
UGK legends.
I love Jamal. He's around Austin still.
Yeah.
And he's taking up golf. I know that because I've seen him on the golf course. And
how's his
grinding.
swing?
It's getting better. Like, he's taking lessons. He's trying to get it going. And you know, those guys, when they put their mind to something, they pick that stuff up and they get it going. So
yeah, because they're so competitive. Like, again, can you see Kevin Durant playing golf? Like, I hope he finds something. I can't see that.
He's so long.
Yeah, he's so tall. Like,
yeah, trying to get that swing timed up, and that'd be something. I had a buddy, John Paul Osterbahn, who played on Michigan's national championship team, 6'11", played on that 89 national championship team with Glenn Rice and Ramil Robinson and Sean Higgins, and he took up golf, and we would always laugh but he was so athletic that he figured it out at 6'11", swinging that club. So, yeah, John Paul Osterbahn. He was we always gave him hell because his picture was in Sports Illustrated getting dunked on by David Robinson when David Robinson scored 50 for Navy.
Oh,
And
oh man.
Yeah. But hey, at least he was there. He got his college education paid for at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, you gotta take that one, a natty. Like, come on.
Yep. And then he went to work in the Chicago Board of Trade back when you wanted tall guys down in the pit because you could always see them. So he would get all the trades in. He became like the most popular trader and made a pile of money.
Damn.
And then went into like, he knew that was a kind of a hot thing. He took his money, went back to Kalamazoo and started buying up real estate. Now he's a big old businessman in our hometown. Shout out to John Paul Osterbahn. Oh yeah. JP would tell me stories about going out with Glenn Rice, and he's like, Glenn is the coldest brother you've ever seen. Like he's from.
What does that mean?
Oh, he doesn't mess. Like he's from Flint. If you bump into him the wrong way, he's gonna like
lose it.
Yeah, I mean, he calmed down, but like he never backed down from anybody in the NBA. Not anybody. I'm trying to think of. He had a couple of altercations. I don't think he had one with Kobe, but yeah, Glenn. Yeah,
Sarah Palin. I remember hearing this story. I was like, this can't be true. But you know,
I think it was true.
I feel him.
Yeah,
Glenn.
Oh yeah, Glenn.
He can shoot it. That's what I remember him the most.
Oh yeah,
like that jumper was picture perfect. Those Charlotte Hornets, Miami Heat days in the 90s. But
yeah, Glenn Rice. And then they had a point guard named Antoine Jobert who had the best shag you've ever seen. Jerry curl, and JP said going out with those two was like going out with the Beatles around Ann Arbor. But no one messed with them. I'll say that. Yeah. That was an unbelievable Final Four. I don't know if anyone here is old enough to remember it, but they ended up playing PJ Carlesimo's Seton Hall team in the final, and it went to overtime. Yeah. And Ramil Robinson had to hit free throws to win it, and he did. And Ramil wasn't always the best free throw shooter, but by God, he made them when they had to have them. And Michigan won the national championship. That was the year that they fired Bill Frieder and elevated Steve Fisher. And Fisher won the national championship as an interim coach. And so when RT was the interim for Texas, and Texas looked like it had a chance after they, won their Sweet 16 game against Xavier, I interviewed Steve Fisher, and he knew Rodney very well because they competed against each other in the same conference when Steve Fisher was at San Diego State. And RT said that Steve Fisher was really helpful to him. Anytime he, needed help and so I thought that ended up being a kind of a cool story. Unfortunately for Texas, you lose your big man, and they needed all their reinforcements against Miami. But you know what else hurt Texas in that game? Carr like rolled his ankle.
Right.
Kind of like about, I want to say 10 minutes in to the second half. and he was not the same. And so their offense totally changed. And suddenly you were relying on Brock Cunningham and oh gosh.
Jabari Rice?
No, the kid who transferred from Utah.
Timmy Allen?
Yeah. And those two didn't have it.
Yeah.
And so your offense disappeared, and that's how you give up that run. You're up, 13 with 12 minutes left, and what could have been?
What could have been?
What could have been? All right,
CB. I don't know if Michigan ever played that B&W squad with the great late RIP Lance Blakes, Travis Mays, Joey Wright. I don't know.
I don't think they did. They played the Michigan team after that group. In the NCAA tournament.
Because their run was what, 90? Like what,
Michigan's
Texas
BMW 90, yeah. And Michigan's was 89. But yeah, man, those were
good times, man.
Good times. Remember going to those Texas games at the Irwin Center? Tom Kite was always sitting there watching the Running Horns.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Lance Blanks, R.I.P. Lance Blanks, man. Love that dude.
Yeah, great guy.
Whoa.
My first introduction to Texas basketball was the Chico Vasquez, Chris Clack, Randy Perriman. That's what, especially since Chico and Chris Clack are both from the ATX. Like those
Chris
guys.
Mim.
Yeah, Chris Mim. Like all those dudes, man. Luke Axtell. Like that's where I fell in love with Texas basketball. Teams should have been better, but they were still entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get a couple mentions in here. Like audiovisual consultations. When you're ready for the big screen of your dreams, you know where to go. It's real simple. You just call 255-8678.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations. We've been providing custom electronic systems for Central Texas for more than 36 years. And
old man, I think they all know who you are and what your company does. This is Camilla McKay. The old man believes in big fun and big ideas. He can make dreams come true, so why not dream big? I've been up in Boston, but I know the old man and all his friends and fellow radio heads have been spreading the holiday spirit here in Texas. Why should we stop there? Keep spreading the good feelings all over. Audiovisual Consultations carries all major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And you don't have to leave your house. Just like Santa, they deliver the gifts to you.
Yeah, I like that, kid. Throw a party, hang out with your friends, catch a concert.
That's all fun and good, but can we get back to the business? You can give us a call at 512-255-8678 or visit our website at avconsultations.com for some cool electronics.
Oh, now you're forgetting something.
And as always, hug your kids. We only pretend to be annoyed. Watch some games with your friends and make love to whoever the hell you want.
Hi, this is Tom.
You're muted.
Cover 3 right there on Anderson Lane. Hey, when you're looking for a great meal, you're looking for a great place to hang out with friends, great drinks, brunch on the weekends. The Chop House Burger, Texas Monthly says, is one of the best burgers in the state of Texas. If you've never had it, you got to go check it out because there's so many great meals on that menu. The ribeye tacos, the $7 social hour menu. So happy hour 3:30 to 6:30, 3:30 to close on Mondays. And that $7 social hour menu has the bacon deviled eggs, the firecracker shrimp, the chicken, the sliders, the big chicken slider. How come I couldn't remember that, for crying out loud? I love those sliders. And the Parmesan fries. Get into cover 3 If you have one of those margaritas, don't have more than 2. Let's just put it that way. They'll get you where you want to go. And hey, you got Salt Traders Coastal Cooking as well. I mean, if you love seafood, get over to Salt Traders there at Zilker and up north in Round Rock. You got Jack Gilmore, restaurant legend. He also gives you Jack Allen's Kitchen, and man, best selection of raw oysters anywhere in Austin. And I'll tell you, because this is a little near and dear to me, because I've got a little bit of the snoring and sleep apnea, but the Sleep Cycle Center is the only medical sleep office in Central Texas that provides the most technologically advanced care and screening, at-home testing, evaluation of airways, and treatment options related to sleep and breathing issues such as sleep apnea. And this is not to be messed with. I always bring up Reggie White because Reggie White had sleep apnea. He died in his sleep, and he did not have his CPAP mask on when he passed away. And if you're a heavy snorer, you find yourself waking up because you're lacking enough breath, then you need to get into the Sleep Cycle Center. Their focus is to educate you on what's going on with your body, provide all possible treatment options related to your specific issue. If you're snoring, if you're having trouble sleeping, maybe both, reach out so that they can give you that evaluation so that you have all the information, you're making an informed decision, because they can eliminate snoring and help you, to where the sleep apnea is not causing you to wake up all night and you're waking up tired every day. And if you mention the Texas Sports Unfiltered sent you, the Sleep Cycle Center will take $100 off your sleep study or your weight loss program. 2 convenient locations in Austin, in the Arboretum and in Lakeway. They see patients from 6 to 106, and they're in network with most medical insurances. Go to sleepcyclecenter.com for more information. That's sleepcyclecenter.com. And don't forget to tell them you heard about them on Texas Sports Unfiltered so that you get the $100 off. Sleepcyclecenter.com. All right, Zay. Where Rob says it's already raining pretty good in parts of Austin.
Oh, damn.
So hope the fans will check the weather, head out there. They knew the rain was coming now, but it's supposed to stop right around 5:30. That's why they rescheduled the game from 7:30 to 5:30 so that they get going right as the rain is ending and try to get in the game before it gets too cold and too windy. So CB says Terrence Rencher. I love Terrence Rencher. I had Terrence Rencher on the radio. I had him co-hosting with me. I also got Rod Babers into radio.
Look at you putting on.
When Sean was out, he would do these he would speak to college athletes across the country. And so when he would go do that, I would bring in, Rod or Terrence Rencher. And Terrence Rencher is the man. Like he's great. And then he got into coaching and away he went. He's been doing the coaching gig now. But great guy. And obviously could put the ball in the basket. He's still the all-time leading scorer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He got buckets, man. New York City's finest.
Okay, so
no Hummer today?
No Hummer today. So Hummer's off. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. He's off.
Good for Hummer.
He'll join us next week on Tuesday. But this is an interesting week because both the men and the women's basketball teams are off during the week. So they get a chance to rest and recover before they get back to work. The men on at South Carolina, and the women they don't play again till next Monday.
Yeah.
So much needed.
Yeah, you gotta get Arthur Kaluma back healthy. Like, I feel like that's the number one priority right now for this Texas team, because they want to pull any Cinderella upset stories. They're gonna need number 6. Like, even though he's been up and down with his scoring, his rebounding has always been there. Like, he's been a legit rebounder consistently all year long. And at 6'6", 6'7", that's really impressive. Like, it should be Caden Shedrick or Zurich Oyema. It's not. It's a 6'7" Arthur Kaluma, who I've said plenty of times should be playing the small forward position. But instead, with the lack of size that Texas has, is being forced to play power forward. And it's taken a toll on his body. But when he's out there, he gives great effort and he attacks the board strong. It's just him being hurt, it's definitely been an effect on his offensive game. If he could start coming with it once he's back, and we see the Arthur Kaluma that we saw against Auburn at the first part of January, who had 34 points, and Texas is cooking with some hot grease there. But that's a big if. That's a big if, because dealing with knee injuries and stuff, that's always such a touchy, injury that who knows how guys heal from that, or it comes to soreness or swelling, etc. You just don't know. So you want to be very strategic with his rehabbing process. But hopefully we could see him on Saturday in Columbia when the Horns take on the worst team in the SEC, those South Carolina Gamecocks.
Well, the Texas men, according to Jerry Palm, are still a team playing in the first 4 in Dayton in a play-in game. And so they are, they're tight-roping it. We talked about this, that they're going to, Palm said they're going to have to win 4 of their last 6 as a minimum. And beating Kentucky certainly helps, because that's the first of the final 6, as you mentioned, at South Carolina on Saturday at 7:30. Last place, South Carolina. Then they're at Arkansas. What's your take? And then they come home to face Georgia, and Georgia's a team that's also right on that bubble. And Mississippi State is a good team. They spend some money in NIL and have a good team. And then they're playing OU at home to end the season, Zay. And Porter Mosier, they just lost to LSU in New Orleans. Like,
they're not getting any fan attendance. It seems like Oklahoma could care less about the basketball team right now. And yeah, just seeing highlights of that LSU game, like, go look at the stands. Ain't no one there. Like, Porter Mosier looks like he has no support. And I told you, the loser of that first matchup with Texas and Oklahoma, I don't think is going to make it.
You did.
Oklahoma,
you said that.
They're trying to
You
hang
said
on.
Loser of Texas at OU fails to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
You said that on January 15th.
Yeah, I still don't see it. I really don't. Like, which makes me feel happy. Like, it is what it is. Sorry, Oklahoma. Should have put more money in the NIL or whatever. Porter Mosier should have done a better job. Whatever. At least he's going to have a lottery pick, just like Texas is with Ophir's there. But yeah, I could see Texas going 4-1 in the next 5 games. I could see them going 2-3. Like, I could see both of those. I wouldn't be surprised by either one of them. because you just don't know what Texas team you're going to get. Are you going to get the team that we saw this past Saturday against Kentucky, where Tremont Mark goes 9 for 14 with 26 points, his best game of the year, and in the Texas uniform? Or are we going to see the Tremont Mark that we saw against Alabama that went like 2 for 14 or 2 for 12 and had 4 fouls and really struggled? Like, you just never know with this squad. That's what makes it so annoying to watch, because you see the talent there. You see, guys making the right play, playing for one another, playing great defense. And then at times you're like, where'd that go? Like, why aren't guys rotating in the right positions when it comes to help defense? Why aren't guys locking in on three-point shooters on the team and helping off of them so they could get those clean looks like we saw against Vanderbilt? So, again, regrouping, having all this time off, that's a big deal. Hopefully guys like Jordan Pope and Julian Larry could give them a little bit of a spark, because that'd be huge, man. I've been hard on the point guards lately because they just haven't been good. They haven't been consistent.
How much
show
have you
flashes, but
how much
not
have you
to where they
seen?
need.
How much have you've been paying closer attention than I have? How much has Tremont Mark run the point?
He did it all year at Arkansas. That's why it should have been an easy transition on this team. Like, that's what you should have saw. Like, that's what you did see if you're RT and this coaching staff, and why you got him. Like, oh, this guy with the ball in his hands, he can make some things happen. He averaged around 16, 17 points a game for Eric Musselman last year at Fayetteville. So he's capable. He's not a traditional point. So will it take shots away from Trey Johnson at times? Yes, but like I've been saying, Trey going to get his anyway. Like, that's just going to happen.
They need help.
They do.
Like, Trey doesn't like it when he's the only one getting buckets. Look at how Tremont Mark and Trey sort of helped each other in that Kentucky game. They were both threats, so the defense had to adjust to both. If the defense can just totally focus on one guy, that's a recipe for disaster.
You have to be a good one-on-one player to play in this Frank Haith, Rodney Terry offense, because that's what it is. I don't like it. I've made that known plenty of times on these airwaves. Like, if I could get some more motion, hell, even go back to elementary and give me some flex action. Cross screen on the baseline, down screen, guys coming up top, like, just that consistently. I'll take that, but they just get stuck with the ball. Everybody's just watching Trey, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But Tremont Mark and Trey Johnson are the only ones that can create their own shot consistently. And Tremont Mark, at times, he struggles at that just because he doesn't have the ability to get in the rhythm due to everything around him. And some of it's his fault because he'll defer, Jordan Pope. At times you see him going to work one-on-one, but he doesn't want to do that. Like, he needs people to create for him so he could shoot that pretty spot-up jumper of his, or come off screens and, dribble loops to where he can have one dribble pull-ups when guys are moving, not coming down like old school James Harden and everybody standing around and you just got to do step backs all day. That is not his game, but he falls into that pattern of what the offense is. And again, only Trey and Tremont Mark could really do that at a consistent rate. So you want those guys out there as much as possible. You want the ball in their hands as much as possible. And you want guys like Jordan Pope and Jason Ken and Devon Pryor to play off those guys. Hell, Caden Shedrick too. Like, Caden Shedrick, he's not a back-to-the-basket guy, which is unfortunate because you got to have those in college basketball. You got to have that dude you can just feed the post to, and he can go get you a jump hook every now and then. And again, Caden Shedrick, really good last 4 minutes of the Kentucky game. Probably his best 4 minutes as a Texas Longhorn. Blocking shots, offensive rebounds, tip dunks, Open dunks to ice the game. Caden Shedrick, awful the first 36 minutes, really good the last 4 minutes. So in a win, you'll take that. But again, he's not a guy that will go and get his own bucket. So you got to give that to Tremont Mark and let him be himself and be like, yo, you got the ball and you're in the game, go to work, bruh. Go to work. Screw everybody else. Trey will be fine. We'll keep Trey in line because Trey can get a little over emotional and get a little crazy. You got to calm his emotions down. That's the coach's job. But we need you to score, Tremont Mark. From here on out, we need you to get at least 15 a game. That's a lot, but if Texas wants to be that Cinderella team, you're going to need 12 to eat when he has the ball in his hands. And we saw on Saturday and against LSU, he's capable of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll try and get some information on how Tremont Mark is doing, how Arthur Kaluma is doing, especially Kaluma, because that was rough. It seemed like he landed awkwardly during pregame warmups for Alabama, and Eric Henry said he heard him yell, "Oh, bleep." And then he he only played 11 minutes in that game, was kind of ineffective, and then didn't play at all against Kentucky. And that's, how would you compare? I know they're different players, but in terms of importance, Dylan Dizu was so important to the Longhorns last year. Would you say it's comparable?
To Arthur Kaluma?
And Arthur Kaluma? Yeah.
No, I thought Dylan Disu was way more important, especially this last year, than Arthur Kaluma is. Like, they've won big games without Kaluma.
Yeah.
I don't think he played against A&M at Texas. I think he was dealing with an injury there. We saw what happened, Tremont Mark game winner, and then we just saw him being out in the Kentucky game. They won without him. Like, if you would ask last year's team to win big games without Dylan Disu, it wasn't happening. And Dylan Disu, he just had so much, versatility. Homie could shoot the three. His mid-range jumper was solid. He had an inside game. Like, Dylan Disu had a bag, man. If his athleticism was just a little better, we'd be seeing him playing in NBA games consistently. And he's doing this thing in the G League, but Dylan Disu is an absolute problem. If they had him this year, boy, this team would be really special. And we saw 2023 squad when he went out, how much they needed him there. How he was coming along in the Big 12 tournament in those early games before he got hurt in the NCAA tournament. So, like, even though they play a similar position, this team, they could still do things without Arthur Kaluma. And a lot of that goes to what Jason Kidd brings to the table. Jason Kidd's been solid lately. Like, you got to give the Indiana State transfers credit. Like, it's Alabama. He had his best scoring game, and he had a nasty dunk against Kentucky where Trey Johnson drove to the bucket and dished it off, and Jason Kidd dunked on the dude 2 hands. Like, he's got to get his confidence up. Again, he's not the best three-point shooter, even though he'll hit them every once in a while, but you need rebounding, defense, leadership, and the ability to get you a bucket every now and then from Jason Kidd. He's done that the last 2 games, and with Arthur Kaluma being out, that's pretty promising. It's just now if you could get Kaluma to come back and be solid along with Jason Kidd playing some good ball, get Devon Pryor back in the mix because he's still kind of dealing with an injury, get him back to what we saw a couple of weeks ago, this team could do some things, man. They can. It's just they put themselves in the bind by losing 3 straight, got back in the winning column with Kentucky. Let's see what they do in these last 5 games, which all of them are winnable. All of them are winnable games. Even Mississippi State. Like, you could go 5-0 and be a guaranteed lock for the NCAA tournament. And this might be a little out there, Chip, but let's say if Texas gets a 8-9 seed and they're on the same side as Duke, they'd give Duke everything they want. Duke would not want to see Texas if that was a second-round matchup. They wouldn't. I'm not saying Texas would win that game, but Duke has a lot of freshmen and young guys. Cooper Flagg, hell of a player, going to be the number one pick. Freshman, though, different moment. These regular season games, ACC games, they're cool and all. NCAA tournament, when you're at Duke and you're one of the high seeds, we've seen Duke get upsetted before. When you got a lot of freshmen against a lot of upperclassmen guys, I like that matchup. I would take that. Like, I want Texas to be, if they get that 8-9 seed, I'd love for them to be on the same side as Duke. I'd take that in a heartbeat. I would not like if they were on the same side as one of these SEC teams. I would not want them to see Auburn or Alabama. But if they could somehow get on that Duke side, I still need to see something about Duke. They got to prove me wrong a little bit. They're good. They're good. And Rex, I feel you, bruh. Like, a long way to go. Like I said earlier, I could see this team going 2-3 in the next 5 games. Easy. But I'm talking about when we see this team at their best.
Right.
Like, we haven't yet, but we've seen flashes. We saw the game against LSU, even though LSU, they have no NCAA tournament aspirations. We saw without Arthur Kaluma against Kentucky. We've seen them beat Missouri. We've seen them beat A&M. They've beat some good teams in the toughest conference in basketball. So, yes, a lot of basketball to be played. I am getting over my skis a little bit, thinking about what the NCAA tournament could be if Texas makes it. But seeing this team at their best, you still got Trey Johnson, you still got scores, you still got some solid inside players in Arthur Kaluma. I'm just saying, I'd take Duke. Whatever bracket Duke's in, whatever side they're on, I am fighting for that. I want to see that. I want to make that side. And who knows? They might not even beat their first round game. That 8-9 game is always a flip of the coin. But just a little throwing something out there for you folks, man. Y'all know I'm messy. You know I could be petty. Just throwing a little something out there for you folks to think about.
I love it. All right. For the chip shot today, let's keep it on Texas baseball for the home opener. Zay, I kept track of the walk-up songs over the weekend, and looks like Texas just put it out. But I want to go over a couple of these because get your thoughts on it. Because Kimball Schuessler, who was the leadoff hitter, his walk-up song is 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton. Love it. Love that. Here, I'll pick out some of the starters. Rylan Galvan is Bella Esta Cumbia by Selena.
Ooh.
Ethan Mendoza is Lock It Up by Yeet. Feel free to jump in. Easton Winfield, Thank God by Travis Scott.
Okay, a little T. Scott.
Will Gasparino, Welcome to the Jam Rock by Damian Marley. Adrian Rodriguez, Atrevete Te by Cali 13. Aiden Moffitt, he's the LSU pitching transfer, Game Winner by Bossman D'Lo.
My man, Bossman D'Lo, he's the it rapper right now. He's got some hits.
What would your walk-up song be, Zay?
Man, probably like Warren G. Regulate.
Okay.
Yeah, and I put it on one of Nate Dogg's parts. I love
Okay.
that song. That'd get me right for real. How about you?
Oh, I mean, probably Photographed by Def Leppard. No, I'm kidding. Or maybe I'm being serious.
Nothing wrong with that.
A little jammage. That song jams at the beginning. So Max Ballou, stud, his walk-up song is Levitating by Dua Lipa. And we asked Max about that after the game, and he said that that's in honor of one of his friend's daughters who loves Dua Lipa. Now, I said, come on, Max. You like Dua Lipa too. He's like, oh yeah, it's good, it's good.
Oh yeah. Yo, remember Dua Lipa was wearing the Texas jersey? That ACL? God, that was a good time. That was a good look. I love Dua Lipa too. I couldn't name one of her songs till what you just said about Max Ballou for his walk-up track, but Dua Lipa.
Cole Chamberlain, the freshman, Live Your Life by T.I. and Rihanna. Andre Duplantier, his intro song is Change Me by Big X the Plug. So let's see. Cody Howard, Summer Love by Justin Timberlake. Max Grubbs, Heavy as the Head, the Zach Brown Band. Carson Luna, Despise de la Playa by Bad Bunny. And Jock Stewart, Keep Their Heads Ringing, Dr. Dre.
Oh, man. That's solid. What they know about that? Ding, ding, dong. Ring, ding, 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 dong. That's a hit. That's a hit. Okay. These guys got taste, man. These youngsters going back picking songs where they weren't even alive when they were made. I respect that. They know their stuff. Very impressive.
Hey, let's get to the right call. Happy birthday to Dr. Dre.
I didn't know it was Dre's birthday.
How about that? Yeah. CB, the greatest volunteer producer in the history of radio, always keeping us full of the intel.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks, CB.
Appreciate you, CB.
Take it away.
Yeah. Shout out to our sponsors, and got to get to these terrific mentions like McCall Custom Homes. Don't listen to the scrubs out there. Don't listen to the jabronis that don't know what they're doing, that have zero experience. Got to go to YouTube to figure out how to do a job. And they're just going to make your home even worse than it was before and then try to charge you an arm and a leg. No, not the guys at McCall Custom Homes. When it comes to renovating your home, trust the experts, please. Over 40 years of experience, McCall Custom Homes is a family-owned and operated company that's all about quality. It's all about craftsmanship. The father and son duo have combined experience of over 50 years, and they're going to make your existing home into something truly special. Your wife probably getting on you about, we don't host enough parties. We don't do this and that. Like, I want people over. Well, you might be embarrassed of what you got going on. Don't be. Call McCall Custom Homes and be proud of your home and just how they renovate it and keep it nice and clean, and just they're the best. And shout out to our man Mike. Mike gave us a shout out earlier. Always listening to the show. Hit him up at 512-633-9580. It's 512-633-9580. If you want to see everything McCall Custom Homes is about, you can check them out on Facebook and Instagram at McCall Custom Homes. And if you want to send Mike an email, hit him up at mike@mccallcustomhomes.com and check out their brand new website, McCallCustomHomesATX.com. It's McCall Custom Homes. We build value into your home. And Covert Bee Cave, wifey and I are Covert Bee Cave people, and that's because they're the best. We love our Buick Encore GT, and they've been putting in work for over 100 years. And if you don't like my word for it, hey, check them out for themselves.
It's really a family experience. You know, I walked in the showroom today and everybody greeted me by name. How are you doing? What's going on? How's everything going?
From a price standpoint, from a customer service perspective, just conversation when you come in, it feels no pressure. I want to buy cars here.
The family buying car experience, one of the best that you will ever have.
Come and experience it for yourself.
Covert, born and raised in Austin.
That's right. Check out their website at covertbeecave.com to see all the latest specials and inventory. Nobody beats a Covert deal. Not now, not ever. And Leaf Landscape Supply, a full-service wholesale, retail, plant nursery, and landscape supplier here in the ATX. Go check out both of their locations up north of Palm Springs and down south of 290 and Monterey Oaks. If you're looking for large quantities of supplies to fulfill any landscaping job, trendy house plants, a collection of specialty plants and rare plants, they're your one-stop shop for everything you need. Because, hey, some of y'all might have a bland, decoration set up, whether it's indoors, outdoors, it doesn't matter. Change that. Leaf Landscape Supply, they are your guys. Go visit their website to see what they have to offer also at leaflandscapesupply.com. And remember, when you go in and you make a purchase, let them know Zay Collier told you, and you get 10% off. The team at Texas Sports Unfiltered is trying to hook you up for things to be a little cheaper, and 10% off, you can't beat that. So check that out at both of the Leaf Landscape Supplies here in Austin, Texas. All right, Chip. So, CB, what'd you send me, bro? Oh, yes. My man, CB holding it down. Sent me that Dua Lipa picture, rocking that Texas jersey. Boy, oh boy. What a good time. What a good time. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know one song of hers. Not one. But I know who she is. Absolutely. I don't know if she's good or not. She must be good enough because she gets a lot of love and publicity. But if I bought tickets, I know what I'm buying tickets for, Chip. That's all I'm saying. But anyways, back to the right call here. So this is interesting story. What I saw, I'm going to show a video in a second, but Rick Pitino and St. John's having a hell of a season. Rick, we joke about
them
Rick.
Take down Creighton the other day.
Yeah, it took down Creighton the other day. I think they're on top of the Big East. And Rick Pitino, just talk about love for the game. Say what you want about him, but the dude's one of the greatest of all time. Can he be a little sketchy? Yeah. We talk about the on the table in the restaurant situation just because that's how we get down and we think it's funny. But also, he's won national championships at multiple places, and he has the St. John's Red Storm, again, playing some really good basketball.
Hey, number 10 in the nation, leading the Big East.
That's right, man. St. John's, they haven't been this good since Mark Jackson and Chris Mullin and them boys. And that was the 80s. So it's been a long time coming for St. John's to be the ones who completely represent Big East basketball and New York basketball, because usually it's Syracuse. But Rick Pitino, we mentioned the Going for Gold documentary and all those coming out, sports documentaries where you get to see background of guys and what they're doing every day to day when it comes to preparing for their team. Rick Pitino has one with Vice Sports. And man, Chip, this dude still has that fire that he had back in the 90s when he was coaching Kentucky and them dudes. Check this
72.
out.
He's 72.
72. Yeah, keep that in mind when you watch this video.
Dig in and be a basketball player. Dig in. Every time you miss a shot, your game deflates. We don't care about your missed shots. Play defense. You guys keep blowing opportunity upon opportunity upon opportunity. You're like children with bad things happening. Instead of digging in and be tougher, you wilt. Where is your toughness? Where have you guys been raised that you're so weak mentally that you just give up when something doesn't go right for you? Don't you know what adversity is all about? That's the game of life, not the game of basketball. You don't get down when things go wrong. You dig in and get tougher. Your whole life's gonna be adversity. Learn how to deal with it.
Patino, Red Storm Rising, Tuesdays at 10 on Vice.
Dude,
Yo.
that's the Augie Garrido rant right there. That's a coach who's got the legacy, ego prison. Remember, go YouTube the Augie rant where he's like, some of you are going to forget about this in 15 minutes, but I got to live with this the rest of my effing life.
We all know it.
If I tell you to take, you take. You don't act like you don't see it. You take. Then they flash to the postscript, and it's like, Texas won the next 15 games in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
But that was Rick Pitino, like, eating his players alive as a guy who's like, I'm not going to have my name associated with you slappies. I need some toughness. Where the hell were you raised?
Yo, that's as real as it gets, man. 72 years old. Like, still got that fire. Hell of a coach. Now, his little stint with the Boston Celtics, people forget about that. It wasn't like Rick was perfect out here. Rick, NBA Rick, nah, that ain't it. But when it comes to this college game, especially now, though, Chip, like, everybody's so sensitive, and now guys are getting paid. You would think that Rick wouldn't be able to adapt to this new era of college athletics and college basketball. And here he is, cussing this team out, calling them weak mentally. That's what I need. I need stuff like that. That's important. Like, that's what it's all about. Like, and look at them. First in the Big East. Like, top 10.
Top 10.
A team that nobody wants to see in the tournament, especially with Rick on the other side. Like, how many guys can compete with Rick Pitino when it comes to this coaching game? Sideline. Like, Rick Pitino versus yo coach. A lot of the time, who you gonna take? I'm gonna go with Rick a lot of the time. I am. He's one of the ones that is still around. Loves it. He got kids and stuff. They coaching. He can't give it up. And yeah, he was smashing on the Pasta Primavera. So what?
Hey,
so what?
If we rated coaches based on their personal conduct, we'd be screwed.
Yeah, we all horny sometimes. Ain't nothing wrong with Rick being a little horny. At a restaurant.
Everybody's got their shizzle.
Yeah,
they got
everybody got a little nasty in us. As long as you keep it as cordial as you can, that's nothing wrong with it. Rick didn't do anything wrong, in my opinion. Rick just got a role-playing fantasy where he likes to eat some garlic bread while he's,
I mean, his wife and 7 kids might have something to deal, but that's between them.
That was it. Goumage. He's Italian. What was it? Goumage. What's the side piece called?
Hey,
Italian folks.
I'm telling you, go YouTube.
The culture.
Go YouTube the press conference of Rick Pitino after. Remember, the gal that he hooked up with ended up being found guilty of extorting him, and when he won that case, and people wanted to ask him questions, it is the most bizarre press conference you've ever seen. He goes into 9/11 and Teddy Kennedy, and you're like, what world am I in right now? But dude can coach. He can coach ball, and he's still hungry about it. All right.
Before we bring Patrick and Nick on, Rex know what I'm talking about. The Gumar. Yeah, I be watching Sopranos and stuff. Goodfellas, Godfather, they all had them. That's a part of the culture. That's normal. Like, that's just a part of the game.
That story is a 30 for 30. I hope we get it one day, because the strength coach who was protecting the door so that Patino could smash the pasta primavera ended up taking her to have the pregnancy taken care of, and then they ended up falling for each other.
Yeah, that's come on, it's bro code. Come on. That was wrong. That's bro code.
All right, let's bring in Patrick and Matt. What's going on, fellas?
Oh, we're doing good. We're doing good. Yeah, I was CB. I always think, whenever I think Rick Pitino, I think about him complaining for the last 20 years that they got screwed out of Tim Duncan. If only he had Tim Duncan, he would have been the greatest coach in NBA history. If only he had gotten Tim Duncan.
I love Chip's idea of 30 for 30 on this. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
I would tune in all day.
I mean, talk about, it's got all the elements. Big names, little sizzle, smashing the pasta primavera. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you could get that out in the next, by March, you're good to go, because it's going to get his name out there again, and everyone will be all about Rick Pitino again. I don't know. Maybe Vice is going to stop that from happening. They got the Rick Pitino edge right now.
Yeah, man.
All right, I'm gonna leave and go down a rabbit hole, see if I can find some. Where are they now on the gal who ended up? Anyway, all right.
Appreciate you guys.
Right,
Have
man,
a great show. We'll be back tomorrow.
There you go. Welcome in to Open Gym. Here every weekday, 4 to 6 p.m. on Texas Sports Unfiltered, bringing you as much Texas football, basketball, baseball, every coverage we can get you here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. I'm Patrick Davis, along today with Matt Galatzan, back in the studio with us. He is a publisher there on Texas Longhorns on SI. Today's show, we'll be talking about a little Texas football, hiring James McIndoe, another hire, another big name coming in to Texas football. That is not fill the running back position, so we'll talk a little bit about that search as well as that continues on. Texas men's basketball, Joe Lunardi put out his new bracketology this morning, and although the Longhorns do not have a game this week, we will talk a little bit about where their odds sit right now of being in the tournament, where they sit. College football expansion is being talked about a lot today. It expanded once. They're already talking about doing it some more. We'll get into that. Mel Kiper had some comments about Quinn Ewers as well, discussing why he may not be the guy in the NFL. We can get into that and get your opinions on that as well. And if we have a little bit of time, we'll talk about the Cowboys and a running back position that I think needs to be addressed pretty quickly if you're the Cowboys. As more research I've looked into this, there's not a lot out there in the running back position in this offseason that kind of got dealt with a lot last year. So we'll talk a little bit about that too if we have the time. And whatever else we get into, what you guys bring up, because here on Open Gym, we bring in great legendary lifetime Longhorns like we had Greg Swindell on yesterday, but we also want to open the gym up to all you guys there, whether you're listening online, on Facebook, on YouTube, Twitch, or X, and you want to jump in the chat, you can jump in there to talk to us, or on the text line, 512-222-9328 is how you can get to us here. But let's get to our co-host, Matt Galatzan. How are you doing today? I know you were moving yesterday for President's Day. Are you almost moved in now? Are you still have like 90 boxes to go, or where you at?
No, man, I'm kind of a machine when it comes to this stuff. So I already have my entire house put away. I got in yesterday. I was up till about 2 a.m. last night. Well, maybe not that late, probably about 1 a.m. last night, putting everything away. And, it's coming together, man. It's pretty cool. I got a 6 skyline view of downtown Houston from my balcony. So it's pretty solid.
All right, downtown Houston, how many highways are in that view?
I can see I-10, 610, probably 45, at least 3.
Yeah. Okay. It's always curious about that with Houston. Because in Austin, you don't really have that as much. You maybe get Mopec or 35, but it's kind of centralized. There's so many loops in Houston. It feels like you're going to get a highway in that every time.
Well, I'm up on the 6th floor, so I can see pretty much the whole city from up here. So it's pretty cool.
There you go. I like it. Let's get into a little talk about Texas. We talked a lot of Texas baseball yesterday. If you did not hear the news, if you're checking in with us right now, that Texas baseball has moved up to 5:30 today. So the last 30 minutes of our show, we'll give you any updates as we see them come across our screens. But that has been moved up to 5:30 because of the weather here in Austin. And looking around, I went and walked my dog this morning, and it was kind of foggy. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna go mow the lawn before it rains. And then it was raining. So it has been kind of wet and muggy for the last 4 or 5 hours. So it's already kind of be kind of weird, but I think the weather is going to drop tonight too. You could get more rain. So they're going to try and get it out of the way a little bit earlier. So a 5:30 first pitch for Texas baseball today as they get going and start off the season. I was telling Greg Swindell yesterday, it feels like as Texas fans, we've been so trained to just ignore Arlington because they've been so bad in Arlington that they actually went 2-1 and should have gone 3-0. They won the Shriners Cup. So I'm happy that we don't have to say this is the beginning of the season. We can say that they did start the season already. But you can say this is a team that looks good right now. Jason Flores is taking the mound, which learned today Jason Flores and Jalen Flores, not brothers. I assumed that off the top from the beginning and just kind of assumed that through everything. And then they're not brothers. So, and then fun fact, Jalen Flores has a brother named Jason, but it's spelled different and he's an older brother. But that's the hard-hitting journalism you get here is that they are not brothers. There's 2 Floreses on Texas, but Jason Flores should be getting the start tonight for Texas baseball. I do want to get into a little bit of Texas football as we get going. And the big news with Texas football today, because we'll get into the running back coach, but then we also heard an announcement late last night, I believe, that they have brought in Jason McIndoe. He was the running back coach or the tight end coach and Cowboys back coach for Oklahoma State. He's been there since 2015. Before that, he was at Montana State for several years doing O-line. He is a tight ends coach that has not produced a ton of tight ends. Blake Jarwin is probably the one that's most recognizable to fans here. That was a tight end that went to the NFL, but this is not as much of a tight end hire of let's create another JT Sanders, let's get another Gunnar Helm. In that sense, this is a run game help hire. He is very built into blocking. He was an O-line coach before he became a tight ends coach. He also works with fullbacks. He is a guy that is very big on blocking. And I think where you talk, Jeff Banks is the current tight ends coach for the Longhorns. I don't know. I've not heard what the actual title Jason McIndoe is going to be named with. But this feels like a hire that is much more about Sark looking in the future with that now no Quinn Ewers, and you have Arch Manning, but Arch Manning is probably going to run a little bit more. You want to have protection, and you want to be able to run the football. And Sark is doubling down on that, bringing in another coach who will help blocking from the running back position and the tight end position. And I think he's really going to focus a lot on those 2 positions to getting those guys to be better blockers, because you're going to need it as you have a inexperienced quarterback. As good as he is, inexperienced, you're going to want to lean on that run game some more. That seems like they're kind of doubling down before they make the running backs coach hire.
Yeah, I love this move because as we've seen with Jeff Banks and his tight ends, they're primarily receiving guys. Juan Davis was a little bit more of a hybrid who could help in the run game, but as we saw against Ohio State, they could not get the ball in at the 1-yard line, and blocking was a major issue there. And I think that this sort of fits as a maybe assistant tight ends coach slash fullbacks coach when you give it an official title later down the line. And I think that's huge. It's Blake Jarwin, former Cowboy, is a good example of the kind of guys that he puts out. I like that call out, Patrick. Very nice. And we'll see what they do if they bring in maybe another tight end in the spring transfer portal, something like that that kind of fits more of a blocking mold, or if they utilize somebody else in that role. But I think this is going to be pretty good for that kind of situation that they faced against Ohio State, that they faced a couple of other times throughout the year, and obviously having CJ Baxter will help a lot there too. But it looks like they're really doubling down, like you said, and I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me at all with Amari Niblack going to the Aggies that you don't have anybody. Basically, Juan Davis is gone. Gunnar Helm is gone. You're pretty much not returning anyone who has caught any passes. But I think that Amari Niblack, it kind of rolls into that. The reason he wasn't really playing was because he couldn't block. And a big thing for Sark is, especially at that tight end position, but he wants in the running back position as well, he doesn't like showing his hand. And when you have to put in a tight end who's only a receiver, we know it's a pass play. The defense can base off of this. This is a pass play because, or at least they're not running towards the tight end because he's not a blocker. And we know when Amari Niblack is in the game, they're probably not running the football. They're going to throw the ball. So it really limits what he can do. He hates showing his hand that way. I think that was one of the issues he had with Jaden Blue at points before C.J. Baxter went down. He was forced much more into running him. That with Jaden Blue, you felt he was not really going to be great in pass pro. And so you were a little bit worried about his blocking. So you didn't want to use him in too many plays where you weren't going to be running the ball. And so, where you weren't handing him the ball or passing him the ball. You didn't necessarily want to use him in a lot of different ways and use him back in pass pro. So I think he wants to keep ingraining this into the culture of Texas, that when you come here, we make you a 5-tool athlete. We make you the athlete who can do everything at your position. Gunnar Helm there's not a better example of that guy than Gunnar Helm. Mm-hmm. And I think after you see what he did, you can go sell that on the recruiting trail. And right now you're going to sell in the transfer portal, because I think you do have to bring another tight end in. I mean, they may have somebody in that room who is ready to step up and be the guy, but I'd still like you to see one more guy come in and try and be somebody that is a little bit more just reliable, even if it's just a Juan Davis level guy that you don't know is not going to be Gunnar Helm, but somebody that you can trust that is going to block well for you and then can go out and make a 5-10 yard reception for you on third down when you need it. And somebody who can, you kind of want to work with Arch and find somebody that he feels he's going to have his chemistry with, that when he does roll out of the pocket, he's got that tight end, which, I mean, we all know that there's been those tight ends in history in the NFL especially, but those tight ends where if you can just get a relationship, Travis Kelce is the guy right now. When you roll out of the pocket, me and you connect eyes, and I will find a way to get open and get the ball, and you can give me the ball. I think with Arch, you want to find that guy, but you maybe now look at a guy who on his draft report says, well, he's not a great blocker, and he's, he can't play when there's rundowns, and you can now sell him. Jeff Banks has produced now 2 straight tight ends that are going to go to the NFL, and we've brought in another guy who is going to help you with your blocking as well and help build up that part of your game. And our run game as a whole, when you're selling this to running backs, it's great there too. You add in the fact that maybe it's a little bit of tie back into recruiting. I get for Jason McIndoe in the recruiting end. I'm sure he's going to love working for Texas over Oklahoma State. And we don't promise you anything. We don't, there's no NIL. We don't like the transfer portal. I think maybe he'll like it. Maybe he's like Gundy and he doesn't like any of that stuff, but it's an interesting fit to see them bring somebody in and really seem like this next season, as much as you have Arch Manning, he does not want to rely on the pass game. He wants to rely on this run game.
Yeah, and I think that another key factor here is a lot of the tight ends they have on the roster are pretty young.
Yeah.
So he'll be able to develop those guys. Jordan Washington, Spencer Shannon, Amari Winston, Nick Townsend coming in. So he's going to be able to get his hands on those guys early and teach them those things pretty early on and help develop them. I'm not going to be surprised. In fact, it's almost expected at this point that you're going to see at least a couple of those guys next year. I think Spencer Shannon and Jordan Washington in particular, that they really like those guys. So having him in there and Banks to kind of tag team that whole thing is going to be great for those guys' development. If I had to pick one guy that's probably going to be the starter, it kind of seems to me like Jordan Washington might have that edge. He's pretty athletic and he can catch, he can do a lot of things. So I think that McIndoe is going to do a great job with those guys.
Yeah, and that's kind of where you look, where it is. We talk about in the secondary that they kept kind of bringing in more help, and it was putting more hands on deck in the coaching. And this feels like it. And maybe there may be a point too for Jeff Banks of just, let me take a little bit off your plate. I'm not taking tight ends away from you, but let me take a little bit off your plate because we sucked at special teams last year. And that was our weakest point. And I know when I say sucked, it wasn't the worst special teams in college football, but it was the worst group on our field. Our defense and offense was pretty good most of the season, and special teams had some major failures. You didn't get the returns you wanted. You didn't get the defense you wanted on blocks and kickoffs. So I just don't think you got what you wanted out of that. And so there may be a little bit of that with Jeff Banks too. I'm not taking tight ends off, not taking away any of your positions. You're still the guy, but let's make sure special teams gets all the attention it needs. So we'll take away blocking drills from you. And you can go work with some of the guys in practice who maybe aren't, that are not necessarily going to get a ton of playing time anywhere else. And you can go work with them a little bit more, getting up and training that next class. And I mean, maybe it'll not even be anything off his plate, but it just feels like you kind of at that same point, get him a little bit of help and make sure that special teams unit looks better next year. Because it is going to be that revolving door. When he first came in, he built those guys up and had years building that special teams unit up so that it was. And there was guys that were playing and still want to be part of the special teams unit. They were playing regular snaps too. So you had a really, really good special teams unit. And once those guys all left, it's been hard to reset that for him. It was hard to reset it this year. And then, of course, Bert Auburn just turns into a mess. Now you've gone out and got another punter as well because you're trying to start a freshman. He got hurt and his development went down. There was just so many pieces at special teams that it could possibly be a little bit of, helping out Jeff Banks in the team meetings. Jeff, what do you need? What do you need to help you do your job better? And this might be a little bit of that as well, thrown into all the other pieces we already talked about.
Yeah, I think that especially with the kicking game. I mean, if you have a steady kicking game with Bert Auburn, you beat Georgia in the SEC championship more than likely. You don't go into overtime against Arizona State. So those two are just glaring examples of, Bert Auburn kind of falling off down the stretch. So maybe it gives Jeff Banks a little bit more time to work on that kicking game with him. There's no reports out there indicating that Bert Auburn is going to go anywhere. I'm not saying that he is, but I would not be surprised if they try to make a change to that position. I mean, they benched him against Ohio State, so that's going to be in flux going down the line. We don't know what's going to happen there, so maybe it gives Jeff Banks a chance to sort of reevaluate that position a little bit more because it's critical. It's absolutely critical. Yeah. You missed out on an SEC championship in your first year in the league basically because of that, and a couple other things here and there, but that was probably the biggest factor in that game. So if he can get there and, he's going to need to find somebody else to return kicks now that Silas Bolden's gone and Matthew Golden is gone and Jaden Blue's gone. So we'll see what they do there, but it's really just a great all around hire. I think it's going to make things a lot easier for Jeff Banks. I think it's going to make things a lot better for the young and up and coming tight ends. And it's just one of many hires that I think we're going to see going forward. Well, not many. But,
and again, this is also falls into, we can also throw him into, he's going to help out with the O-line too. He played center when he played in the NFL at center. He's been an O-line coach too. And that's another position where you're replacing a ton of players. So you say in the tight end room, you're replacing a lot of players. And in the offensive line, you're replacing a lot of players. And with all that turnover, just to have the extra help on a week-to-week basis, trying to implement training the fundamentals in and all of those pieces, just trying to get it, day after day and week after week to really drill it in. I think it's a great hire to bring somebody else in. And it's also, no shots at Oklahoma State. It feels like that's a place that you may be able to raid some coaches from solely in the fact that Mike Gundy does not want to play easy. And if you find something, they've had a great running back. We know they've run the ball extremely well at Oklahoma State. So if you throw in all those pieces, I think it was a great hire. I do want to go over to the running back room now, where we know Tashard Choice has gone to the NFL. So you actually put up an article over there on SI.com talking a little bit about the running back, some of the names that you could see in the running back room. I'll let you go ahead and lead this one real quick and let us know what are some of the names that you've seen that are possibly being discussed right now at the running back coach position for Texas.
Yeah, so Pete Nikos at On3 put out a report today that there are 3 names that have emerged in the search for the running back coach, that he made a very firm point that these are not necessarily the favorites or they're not running away with the decision, but there are 3 guys that have emerged and will have a shot at the position. It's Nebraska running back coach E.J. Barthel, Baylor running back coach Keenan Hall, and Georgia Tech running back coach Norval McKenzie. I think out of all of those names, Hall is the one that makes the most sense. he's got state of Texas ties. He has done a great job there at Baylor over the last couple of years, or I guess he was just there last year. But in his 1 year in Waco, their freshman running back broke the school record for yards. He had 175 carries for 1,028 yards and 12 touchdowns. And he was a kind of a pretty good recruiter there for the Bears. He got 4 4-star recruits, 2 wide receivers in Rylan Morris, London Smith, and running back Michael Turner, and edge Kamarian Morgan, who was a Texas target at one point, if my memory serves. So that's the guy that kind of stands out to me out of that group. McKenzie is he kind of falls into the Tashard Choice mold in that he's got the Atlanta ties, so that would be big. Yep. Although we know they picked up the other hire last week that's going to help there as well. And then he's also got SEC experience. He was at Vanderbilt on 2 separate occasions early in his career, and again later. And he's got 20 years of coaching experience, so that's a solid one there. And then he also, helped Jamal Haynes earn all ACC honors. So he had 944 yards and 9 scores. And Georgia Tech had the second leading rushing attack in the ACC. So you love to see that. And then Barthel's one that, is sort of a connection. He worked with Kyle Flood back at Rutgers about a decade ago in 2013, 2014. Nebraska did not have a great rushing attack. They were 11th in the Big Ten in rushing. He has shown some recruiting chops. He landed Jamarian Parker there last year. And he's got some skins on the wall himself. He's worked in the NFL. He was at UConn, William and Mary, Howard, and Albany. And he also worked at Penn State as a director of player personnel and at Temple. And he's been with Matt Rule for a while. So, they have that connection there, so it might be a little bit harder to pull him. But all 3 of these guys are, pretty solid names. I like the Baylor coach the most, but we'll see which direction they go. It's interesting because when you got the guy from Georgia, the guy from Georgia Tech last week, you kind of filled that void a little bit with the Atlanta recruiting area, but you really would like to double down. And get some more of those guys, but you can never say no to recruiting connections in Texas because we all know how fertile of a recruiting ground that is. So all 3 of them are pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, and Hall is a Dallas native as well. Played high school football in Dallas, so that puts you into not only a Texas native but a hot spot. Again, we always talk about Atlanta is the number 1 place for high schoolers that end up going to the NFL. High school football players that end up in the NFL. Dallas is second. So there is a point of, and there's a gap in between them, but Dallas second. So, and you also don't want to lose. You do not want to lose Texas. We've seen that other teams are trying to come in and poach more and more players out of Texas. Hall to me too. He's also the youngest, I believe, of the 3. They're all, I believe the other 2 are both around 40 and Hall's around 35 or so. It does make a little bit more sense to me that he be the guy that you come in. It feels like he's on an upward trajectory right now. If we look over at McKenzie, he's an upward trajectory too. It feels like Barthel's the only one that's. I know it's an upgrade to go from Nebraska to Texas, but it's not quite that upward trajectory. If he's been on a rocket going up, feels more like a safe choice of somebody who can get in, who knows what they're going to do. And if you want to bring somebody in to push, and you have the connections, he already knows Kyle Flood. I think there's some parts of that would make it somewhat safe, but I don't know if Sark's necessarily gone that route in his hiring. I think he's gone out and got guys that he believes he can get them into the place they need to be in the coaching world to build them up and be there a couple more years. And Barthel, if he leaves Nebraska and leaves Matt Rule, how long until he's gone is that next question. Is if CJ Baxter turns into a first, second round pick, does he try and use that to move on to a different job? Does he try and, leapfrog? That's one of those questions you ask about a guy like that, where you feel like a Hall would probably be there for at least 3 years, probably just to keep building up his name, maybe try and get a higher position or get that second payday. And McKenzie probably would as well. You probably have 3 years at least in either of those. And you hope. And that's that weird part of hiring coaches now. When you want to be really good, is you say, well, 3 years really means that they've done a great job and they're so coveted because of what they've produced that everybody wants them. And if you go like 6 years, like, what's wrong with him? Like, why is no one else trying to go get this guy? So I think it's a little interesting that you could be put in a position of, trying to find a guy that is not a 1 or 2 year guy, but is a 3 to 4 year guy. And that's where I feel Hall or McKenzie could be. I'm sure there's other names as well that they're reaching out to. But yeah, those two also hit the two main points that we talk about a ton in hiring. It's Dallas and it's Atlanta. They have ties into those worlds. That's where you want to bring in. They both played high school ball there. And, that hometown boy done well is always going to sell when you're trying to go back and do recruiting. So it's good to see those names come up. I'm with you. Of those names, I think Hall is the one that kind of makes the most sense. He looks like he's done the most in the position that he's been in. He is a Texas guy who can come in and make a difference. He comes from I just think that there's less transition in that one, whereas Georgia Tech, there may be a little bit more transition. Now, we know Tashard Choice did it, but those are two very different players as well. Tashard Choice went and played for a while and then came into it, whereas McKenzie basically went straight into coaching. So it's just an interesting look at where they could be with these running back coaches. And it'll be, I think you could look at things a little differently now too, that you're really trying to find somebody. I think you're going to look at ball security is going to be a big one that you're looking at. If we go look up who's, on their staffs have fumbles, because that is a big piece of what, we saw with Texas last year. But it's going to be, can you get guys to, can you train a guy who's got speed to run up the middle? And can we use him everywhere? And again, talking about getting a player who is versatile and has the ability to move around. He's huge on that. Sark is very big on players that can do a lot of different things. And, we saw it again. Jaden Blue last year really didn't run through the tackles as well as you would have wanted, whether that's ball security, whether that's just not being able to power through. But Trey Wisner could go outside, could go inside. And so he wasn't necessarily the best at any of them, but Trey Wisner can do everything. He is a Swiss Army knife of a running back. And so when you looked at what Trey Wisner was, you want that kind of back. And now you say, well, we've got a coach who can work in and help with blocking training. We need you to make sure that you have a guy that can teach them how to keep their body, their base and where it needs to be, that can get them all the fundamentals to make sure that they can go outside, can go inside. You're not trying to teach one style of running, and you find the best way to teach these guys how they can do it. And that's kind of what you're looking at a running back coach right now, because Sark just wants guys that can do everything. And it's a great selling pitch to when you're recruiting, to get a guy in that everybody really feels like he can be part of something and can learn how to do everything. And you can't tell me I can't do it. And I think that's a big piece for recruiting, but you then got to do the back end of it and actually get it done. You're going to always have boutique backs as well, but I think that's going to be a big piece. And, that's where I don't know if Nebraska's had that same luck in the past couple of years. This feels much more of, somebody's vouching for him. We think he can do better. Nebraska's got a lot of problems, so we'll just say we think he can do better. But it's an interesting world right now where they're hiring. I kind of thought we would have been a little closer to a hire by Tuesday. It would surprise me if we don't hear anything by Thursday. At least a definitive 2 names or something like that, because it is recruiting's big, transfer portal, where you need to go. I know there's been other issues in there, that the Torrey Becton, where he was, you're trying to make sure he's back, but it would surprise me if this does not get settled in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I would be shocked if it doesn't as well. I think it's a spot where they really want to get something done pretty quickly. So maybe Becton, kind of distracted from that a little bit, but I expect them to get it done here pretty soon. I want to bring up a couple of things that you said as well about the long-term thing. Yeah. So that's why I think that Rashad Samples is a guy that is probably not going to end up getting maybe to be a finalist or get the job, because as Nick Harris pointed out, I think it was Friday. It might've been Friday on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Everywhere he goes, it's 1 to 2 years max.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's necessarily something that they want. So that's probably a reason they might end up passing on him. And then the other thing you brought up was the fumbling. So while you were talking about that, I pulled up some stats, and this is very interesting. So Texas finished last year 126th in the country in fumbles lost.
Mm-hmm.
They lost 12 fumbles, and they had 25, which is not going to win you very many. A normal team would not win you very many ball games. Texas just had a bevy of talent, so they were able to overcome it. Guess where Georgia Tech finished in that stat?
Where they finish?
They finished 5th in the country.
There's a reason you're looking at them.
They had 14 fumbles, and they only lost 3. Okay. Baylor finished 25th. They only lost 5 fumbles, and they had 14. And Nebraska, let me pull them up real quick. Nebraska was 65th. They had 17 fumbles and lost 7. So all 3 of those numbers are much, much better than what Texas faced last year. So I think that's probably a common denominator. And I think that might be a reason that they're looking so hard, again, outside of the recruiting, outside of the player development for Hall and for McKenzie. I think that the ball security thing is a big factor there as well. So that could be a big thing that they're looking for in this new hire.
Yeah, because, I mean, we talked about it all through the end of last year. Every Texas, person talking about it on the radio was basically going into, how is this not being fixed? How is it, we know what the problem is. We're addressing it. And you would hear the story that Jaden Blue be walking around and Trey Wisner be walking around campus with the balls in the hand, and people are trying to knock it out, and they're doing, and that's great. I think you should do that. I think that's old school football. It didn't work at all. I think for Trey it worked a little bit. But I don't think Trey really ever had a fumbling problem like that. I think he just the moment may have been pretty big, and at times it's hard to focus on 90 things at once in big games, and so he may have lapsed at some points and just forgot to do one little piece of it. Jaden Blue was a major problem that, he was trying to fight for those extra yards. And so it was just an issue, but it continued to be an issue for everybody who was touching the ball for Texas. It became an issue in wide receivers, became an issue for everybody. And it became like, I don't ever want to play on a team where even if I don't fumble, the team is known for fumbling, because it means I'm going to get punched a lot more, because you're now trained the entire week, punch for the ball. They fumble all the time, punch for the ball. And so I think you need to clean that up, because Ohio State's going to do it week 1. You're just going to see, you're just going to see that all, that's what the game film is going to be until you change it. Until you're into week 6 and you have 2 fumbles, maybe, that's when you can sit back and say, okay, they're probably not going to go full on punch, because we're breaking some of these tackles. We're getting away from guys because they're trying to swat the ball instead of tackle the guy. Until you can change that narrative, they're going to be going for them. And every running back for Texas is going to have to deal with that problem. Derek says that fumble problems are contagious. And it was contagious across there. And I think when it's not anything that you would have ever thought about getting rid of Tashard Choice over. But because he left, it is something that you can address in the hiring of a new coach and trying to bring in other ideas. And who knows, maybe McKindo McKindo. I'm sorry, I already forget his name. I've already lost McIndoe. I'm sorry. I was like, I'm around it. I'm beating around it, but I can't see it. I've said too many names in a row. But maybe that's something else that they're going to look at what he does and help teach ball security there. I'm just you just want to bring in, because it was something that's so small in its one play, right? It's 1 or 2 plays a game, but it's costing you so much. And how many of those times were you put into bad positions where your defense, who was killing it, is now in the world of, you got 35 yards to stop it. And it just happened over and over again last season. So I do like those. That was good pulling those up, Matt, being able to pull up those numbers, because it does make sense that Georgia Tech and that Baylor were not fumbling the ball. And that's why you're calling those guys up. Even if I don't hire you, could you tell me what you do? Even if you're not getting the final phone call, can we at least talk about fumble and what you would do to correct our fumbling problem, because it's going to be a problem going forward. But I think that will be something that would surprise me if it was not something in the final hiring. Again, these are not names that are necessarily the finalists. They're just names that are being discussed right now, and people that are on the hook, at least, that are being up for the job. And I think you throw in the fact that this is Texas team that is looking for somebody to build with. And I think that Rashad Sample's point you bring up is correct. That they want him, but they know he's not going to be there long term. And so, as much as that helps in recruiting, it hurts in recruiting. The more and more turnover you have in your staff, the more it hurts in recruiting. You have an offensive coordinator that's probably not going anywhere, and you have a defensive coordinator that's probably not going anywhere. Sark has built his team that way, that as long as those guys are happy and you're paying them enough money, they feel like they're pretty happy in those positions. But your position coaches, which are the guys you're talking to every day, those guys are going to be more difficult to maintain. Sark feels like he's trying to bring in guys, at least maybe you can get through a class with somebody. You can get a freshman that you recruited and have one guy that you were with for 4 years, and then he graduates and goes off, and you go, maybe you can work that world. I know it's a different world where no one, finishes what the school they went to anymore, but that, I feel like that's what Sark's kind of built. I feel he'll stay with that. The age range of all these guys still fits into that world of 35 to 40 that you kind of feel is where Sark's hiring wheelhouse has been for position coaches. So all those notes sound about right. You're in major recruiting areas. They are teams that don't fumble the ball, and they're in the right age range. So all of those names fit in that Venn diagram of what Texas is probably looking for at the running back coach. Why don't we take a quick break? Shout out to Mark K there as well in the chat. Appreciate you joining. Remember, you can join the conversation in the chat on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and X. And you can also join us over on the text line, 512-222-9328. If you have any questions or anything you want us to talk about, we'll get into that. In just a minute, we will get into Texas men's basketball, what the future looks like for Texas men's basketball for this season. College football expansion is being discussed. Mel Kiper on Quinn Ewers, and talk a little bit about Quinn, where he may end up in this draft and his drawbacks. How bad are they in the NFL level? I want to get into all of that as we continue here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. We'll get you going into that Texas baseball game if you're going to watch that, or if you're just on your drive home, we'll keep you going there as well. But why don't we take a quick break here on Texas Sports Unfiltered? Word from our sponsors here on Open Gym.
The best sports bar in Austin, Texas, USA, America is Cover 3. They've got everything you're looking for in a great sports bar. TVs everywhere, so there's not a bad seat in the house, and they've got the right games on. You're not going to have to ask the bartenders, the waitresses, the waiters for the game that you want to watch. They know the games that you want to watch, and the food. My goodness, that's what separates Cover 3 from the other sports bars out there. An upscale menu with tons of great items. You got to try the Sean Adams prime rib sandwich. They've got the filet mignon. They've got the fish tacos. Of course, all of the sports bar classics like wings and nachos as well. Great burgers, great salads. I'm telling you, something for everyone. Of course, the full bar happy hour prices, the weekend brunch. You got to check them out. Anderson Lane, Round Rock, and San Antonio. And, of course, Cover 2, 183 and Lake Creek. It's Cover 3. Dining, spirits, sports.
Hi, I'm Dan Covert with my wife Hayden. Welcome to Covert BK.
Our newest location in the gorgeous Hill Country includes Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, and hundreds of pre-owned and certified vehicles for you to choose from. We have 3 service departments that are ready to take care of your car, truck, or SUV with 86 service bays to accommodate any repair and get you in and out quickly. Come visit us today to select the vehicle you've been dreaming about.
Covert, born and raised in Austin.
Shout out to Leaf Landscape Supply, a full service and wholesale and retail plant nursery and landscape supplier here in the ATX. They have 2 terrific locations. Y'all should check both of them out. If you're up north, hit up the one on Pond Springs Road. If you're down south, hit up the one off Monterey Oaks and 290. If you're looking for large quantities of supplies to fulfill any landscaping job, trendy house plants, a collection of specialty plants and rare plants, Leaf Landscape Supplies, your one-stop shop for everything you need. Go to their website at leaflandscapesupply.com so you can check it out before you get there, what you want. And when you do get there and you're in the checkout line, let them know your boy Zay Collier put you on, the boys at Texas Sports Unfiltered, and you get 10% off. 10% off, can't beat that at Leaf Landscape Supply.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations.
I got this, Dad. This is Camilla McKay, and my dad can help with any TV or stereo needs you have around your house. Just call him, and he will come to you with advice and a great price. And the guys that work for him are awesome. They can install anything, anywhere. So, like my dad says, just relax and smile. We handle all the work.
So just give us a call at 255-8678 or on the web at avconsultations.com.
All right, back here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Myself, Patrick Davis, along with Matt Galatzan. I did just see this in the break. I want to get into some Texas basketball talk, but Texas baseball, have you seen the list that Texas baseball just put out of all the walk-up songs?
No.
They have announced the walk-up songs for everybody. If you go through this list on X, there's a bunch of them on there. There's not a lot. There's a lot that I'm too old and I'm just not in the game enough to know. But I do like that. There's a few in there. Dolly Parton, 9 to 5 is on there for Kimball Schuessler. That's one that I would not expect to have in there. Some Bone Thugs and Harmony from Donovan Jordan.
Ooh, I like that one.
Grayson Saunter, Eurythmics, Sweet Dreams is in there. We can Mr. Boombastic from Casey Borba, from Shaggy. I mean, there's some interesting ones in there. I don't know. It's always funny because there's you know the age of all of these guys, and it feels like some of these songs are like, how did you find Mr. Boombastic? What point did that become your song? There's a Dr. Dre, Keep Their Head Spinning. Leonard Skinner, Simple Man. And going, yeah, a lot of them that I don't know. I can't tell. Max Ballou's got Dua Lipa on there. I think Max Ballou's trying to get something happening. You know, one of the better hitters there on Texas. Will Gasparino's got some Damian Marley. You'll see that one playing a lot this season. The rookie or the freshman Adrian Rodriguez is going with Cali 13. I don't know Cali 13. I'm unaware. Brass Monkey from Beastie Boys is on there. Yeah, some interest. I don't know. Chance Covert might have a problem. He's going with the Black Eyed Peas. I don't know if the Black Eyed Peas still fly in 2025.
Okay, so I'm going to list my 5 favorite. And then you do the same, okay? So I'm going to go with my number 1 is Dylan Volantis, Danza Kuduro, which is from Fast and the Furious, and I love that song. Magic Stick from Samuel Richardson. Perfect for baseball, in my opinion. Let's see. Keep Their Heads Ringing, Jaquez Stewart. Love that. I got to go with Thuggish Ruggish Bone from Donovan Jordan.
That's a good
and
one.
Then, man, there's not a lot of songs that get you as jacked up as Sandstorm. So I'm going to go with Sandstorm, number 5.
Wait, who's got Sandstorm?
Sandstorm is Bryce Navarre.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, that's an impressive one to pull out there. I appreciate that one. Yeah, my favorite was always Careless Whisper from Reddick. I always thought was a great one when he would come out to Careless Whisper. That, you know, anytime you get the entire crowd, one of the only things Oakland had going for it in the last 15 seasons is the Careless Whisper. But yeah, no, I do. I appreciate this list of the Mr. Boombastic. I think it works for baseball. You're trying to hit the boom over the fence, but Shaggy is a weird pull in 2025. There's just some of these pulls that I would not have thought that the song or this person would have lasted as long as some of these have gone. Like, I get Simple Man, Leonard Skinner. It's a weird song to walk up to. I remember when that one came out, there was a Bush commercial, not when the song came out, but there was a Bush commercial years ago, and it played Simple Man. And every time it would come on the radio, and you'd be like, oh, okay, it's Simple Man. And then you would hear the crack of the beer, and they go, Bush. And you were like, nah, you ruined it. Just enjoying the song for the first 10 seconds you let it play. So, but yeah, I don't know if that's it. Yeah, Keep Their Heads Ringing, I'm a big fan of as well. I'm a big fan of that one as well. But yeah, good work there by Texas baseball, letting people know what the walk-up songs are going to be when you get out to those games. Hair of the Dog says, I have to go with I'm Just a Girl by No Doubt. I don't know. I don't know if I go with that one. It was always you want to feel like you want to play like wrestling theme songs. That always feels like a good walk-up music. I always thought the one to really throw everybody off would be play Tom Petty, Even the Losers. I feel like that would really throw off a pitcher if you were walking up just playing Even the Losers Get Lucky Sometimes. I think
good
that
one for that too. So I have a good one for that too. So when I was in high school, our basketball team at Highland Park had they had their intro songs for like pregame warmups or whatever, and they would play like hardcore rap, Eminem, Dr. Dre, whatever, Disturbed, do some heavy metal, all that kind of stuff. But then the last song they would play before the game that would really get the other team's heads is they would do Escape by Enrique Iglesias. It was fantastic. Every single game, the other guys on the team would be like, "What the hell is this?" And it would always throw them off. So I love that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, there's just a few that you could pull off that I feel like would be a throw. Or you could go, there's a great song, no one gets it, but it builds too long where you wouldn't be able to get to it in the walkout. But there's a song when I was playing, my buddy and I would play, we were playing basketball, was the Colt had a song called Goat. It's the greatest of all time, over and over. It's like, and you're like, it's so great to be, but it just takes too long to build up that you can't really use it in any sports settings. Hair of the Dog also, Walk This Way, that could work. Song, the lyrics on it are a little weird when you read all the lyrics, but it's Aerosmith, all their lyrics are like that, so it works if it's Aerosmith. It doesn't work if you're trying to play baseball in 2025. And Lola, I don't know if you want to go out and do a song about dancing with a woman that's a man, and that may be a little too controversial. The Kinks are awesome, but that is I don't know if that's what I would go with. I don't know if I want to get the backlash of trying to play that song in 2025. I feel it's a great song. I'll still jam it. I just do not want to discuss the material in it in any form or fashion in 2025.
Yeah, if you went with a rich white girl party song, you could go with Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus. That would really throw off the opposing pitcher.
Yeah. I'd probably just go Weird Al. Just change up the Weird Al songs every time. They think they're going to get a jam, and then it turns out to be Weird Al. So they're like, what is happening? And I don't know how much 21, 22-year-old kids know about Weird Al. I don't know. They may still love it. I don't know.
That's my generation.
It's like he's been around since like the late 70s.
Yeah,
and true. He's been around for a long time, and he's still putting stuff out. The movie came out a couple years ago. That was by the way one of the best movies. Just a great movie. But let's get back to some actual sports conversation. Appreciate you playing along. If you guys have any walk-up songs that you would use that you want to throw in there in the chat or the text, feel free to throw those in. We'll try and read those off. But I want to talk about Tex. Yes, right. Rex St. Charles, you're right. Weird Al is a national treasure. He is. I've met him once, and it was the only person in my life I've ever been starstruck around, because it was like meeting a cartoon character. And it was literally, and I was with the group, I was with the band I was working with at the time, and we met him, and the band was giving me grief because they're like, well, we know you're a big Weird Al fan. I'm like, so are y'all. Everyone is. What are you talking about? And so we met him, and then they were nervous too. We were all nervous, and he was just a really nice guy that we met doing some morning TV show in San Antonio one time. But that nonetheless, yeah, Weird Al. That's also, by the way, my vote for Super Bowl halftime show every year. Just put Weird Al on the Super Bowl halftime show. No one will complain. Everyone will love it. It'll be great. Just do that. Let's get into Joe Lunardi put out his bracketology. Joe Lunardi, pretty good at this. He is the guy that has the best odds on this. And before Texas played Kentucky, we talked about it a little bit, that he had Texas in the last 4 buys, had Texas at a 10 seed. And after he put out a new list this morning, after the Texas win over Kentucky, they have not moved. I think he moved them up in the 10 spots. I think he moved them to where they were a little bit lower in his last 4. So they didn't really jump too many teams, maybe jumped 1 or 2 teams in his rankings. But he felt like I'm guessing he felt like they were going to get that win, or at least get some win somewhere around there. But Joe Lunardi still has Texas in this thing and one of the last 4 buys. So not even having to play in the play-in game. He has them there. Texas' schedule is not terrible. It's not a walk in the park because it's the SEC. But the remaining schedule, they have 5 games left. They're going to play at South Carolina on Saturday. South Carolina is you have to win that game. South Carolina is not very good. South Carolina is below 500. You can beat South Carolina. So you got to go into South Carolina and get the road win. You come back, and then Wednesday you're back on the road at Arkansas. Arkansas beat you here. They probably shouldn't have. Tremont Mark hopefully feels better again. I want to see Tremont Mark have a big game in that game like he did. That is another one that you really feel like you want to get a win there. You're at home against Georgia. You got to win that one. You got to win your home games the rest of the way out. At Mississippi State, you'd like to win that one. If you win that, if you win those 4 in a row, 5, Kentucky through Mississippi State, you're in the tournament. You're in. You're good. The last game won't matter as much. But it is at home against Oklahoma, so you're going to want to win that game anyway. But I think you go 4 out of 5 in this is where you're pretty happy. If you go 3-2, it gets a little bit more questionable. You got to do something in the SEC tournament. And if you go 2-3, you have to make a run in the SEC tournament. I think Joe Lunardi, judging by where they were at a 10 seed before and staying at a 10 seed, I think he has them going like 4-1 in this. And he feels that they'll step up. I keep saying it. Rodney Terry historically has done well at the end of seasons. Historically, he has made his teams play the best at the end of seasons. His team didn't necessarily play great, but they're beat up. Again, you want to be, most basketball coaches want to have a 8-man rotation when you get into the final parts of the season. You want to have a solidified 8-man rotation. And they do. The problem is 2 of those guys are hurt right now. And that Arthur Kaluma and Kendall Weaver are not playing right now. And Kendall Weaver has not played in a month, and we don't know what he's going to be when he comes back. We don't know if he's going to be 100% or, if they're resting him up to make sure he's 100%. I don't know where Kendall Weaver is. They're playing that close to the vest. So I don't know where that is, but if you get him back, that'll be a big piece going down the stretch. Give your guys a little bit more rest, to push him out. I'm still not 100% sold on the Jordan Pope coming off the bench experiment. I get why you're doing it, but I don't know. I just don't know if we're going to work out the way you want it to, because you're still playing Trey Johnson almost the entire game anyway. And if your problem is that Trey Johnson and Jordan Pope don't play well together, putting him off the bench is not really helping that as much as you would want it to be. It feels like you're trying to get him going early, and that's why you're doing it, which would help the last couple games. Matt, you weren't on yesterday, so you didn't get to talk much about the Kentucky game. Are you surprised that Texas is still thought of as a 10 seed, or is this, where you feel it should be? This is a Texas team that should be a tournament team right now, and they can still lose it. With that win to Kentucky, okay, they're back in. They're in good graces.
Yeah, I thought that, going into that Kentucky game I didn't think they were going to win that game just based on how they had played. So I was happy to be wrong about that. It's anytime you get a win over a top 15, top 20 team, it's going to look great on your resume. So that was a huge win for them. I think that puts them in a position where they control their own destiny in terms of getting into the tournament. Like you said, they have to win against South Carolina. They have to win against Oklahoma. And you'd like to see them
Georgia too, because you're at home.
Yeah,
you just got to win your home one.
You got to win the home game too, and you'd love. I think that if there's one game out of that group that really scares me, if I'm Texas, it's probably Arkansas on the road, just because based of how you played them before, and that's going to be a real hostile environment. Arkansas has. I think Sark said it. Arkansas hates Texas more than they like themselves.
Arkansas has said that.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where that's going to be a real tough place to play. So not that you're going to approach it any differently in terms of how much you want to win that game or anything like that, but that's probably going to be the toughest ask out of that group. So if they can go 4-1, I think they're in great shape. 3-2 is still passable. You'd like to see them win a game in the SEC tournament if that happens, but you can't just drop an inexplicable game against South Carolina or Oklahoma, because if you do that, the water gets real muddy.
Yeah, and I mean, you're now in the position of, as you get to the back end of February, and especially those couple games in March, you're in where everybody's watching college basketball. And now every loss is magnified even more because you're just a 16-10, team with everybody else at 16-10. But now, if you have one loss, we all saw that loss, and it becomes a bigger issue to the fans and I know the people that are making the brackets, they'll be watching all season long, but that narrative will shift, and you'll start to get more coaches that will start to sway. And here the dog brought up that y'all convinced RT is right fit at Texas. If you want to bring up something that's probably an issue, is that RT doesn't have the ability to lobby as well as some other coaches do that may be on that edge. And RT can try and lobby as he does, but he's never really been the politician of a coach that can go out there and say the right things at the right time. Sark was a guy at the end of, talking about the seating and everything else. We just go out there and play football the way we should. And just kind of taking jabs at other guys without taking jabs, that kind of political standing that Sark's pretty good at right now. I don't think RT has that. And when you're talking about those, being in the right bracket that you want to be in, being in a position that you feel is good, I don't know if he's got that ability. But overall, and this will be a test for RT. If he finishes the season strong again, it's disappointing because you understand this is going to be a constant thing that it takes him a while to build these teams up. And you got to work on that as he continues to go. But I'll stand by. I think RT was the right hire for what he did. I think he took a team that was not ready to compete at the level it competed at the end of the season and got them where they needed to be, was in a bad position. He deserved that job. You couldn't give it. At the time, I was doing the radio broadcast, and you talked to everybody who would come in from ESPN and everybody, the scouts that were there and everybody else you talked to. And to a man, everyone was like, yeah, why have they not given Ronnie Terry the job? It's his job. Like, this is crazy. And if he doesn't get hired here, he would have gotten hired at another Power 4 school immediately. So I get that because he wasn't hired out of the blue. I get all those pieces. He was the right guy. He did well again last year. This year, we get it. He is in the position. There's things that have not ended up well. A lot of this goes to injuries. That Tremont Mark is out, and then Kaluma is out now, and Kendall Weaver has been out. And then Jordan Pope, they just haven't figured out for whatever reason. And I think part of that goes into their scouting staff and Chris Ogden and the general manager. I think some of that goes into that. But at the end of the day, everything funnels back into the head coach. He's going to take the blame for it. So I think Rodney Terry is the guy for the job. But if he goes 1-4, he's not, and he'll be gone. And if he goes 2-3, it's questionable to finish this season. That he be there. I think 3-2, then you start to go. He's probably still in the tournament unless he gets blown out in the SEC tournament, which is possible. You get a bad seed there and lose 2 games and you're out. But I don't know if Rodney Terry is a great coach. I know that I don't think you're going out and necessarily just grabbing a great coach though, and that's where we sit. And we talked about this on the show last week. You have to remember North Carolina is probably hiring a new coach, and so now you're talking about trying to hire a great coach while another school that is a more desirable location for basketball is going to be out there trying to go get a coach as well. It just becomes hard to replace a guy who is a known commodity, that he has gotten wins in the tournament 2 years in a row. That's difficult to do. He has brought in a top 5 prospect. He's done a lot of things a lot of other coaches cannot do. So there's a lot of positives that RT has. That in Indiana, Rex say Indiana will probably be hiring too. I don't know if I think Indiana and Texas are similar in places. I know it's a basketball school, but they just haven't been in the spotlight as much recently. North Carolina has all the money with the Jordan brand. There's a lot of pieces in that make it a very desirable location for a coach. Indiana is desirable, but Texas can throw money. You can get a different type of coach there as well. So I agree with you, though. It is another piece you have to worry about. That I like RT still staying there. I'll still be on the RT bandwagon. I think this year has shown more and more that there's issues with this team. On the flip of that, you want to give him some time to figure it out. I think if they put this roster together a little bit better this season and they don't have the injuries, they're clearly an 8 seed, 7 seed right now, which is still not great, but I still think they're an 8 seed, 7 seed with a freshman that you're hoping will bloom, as he had one of his best games overall against Kentucky over the weekend.
Yeah, and I think going back to the RT fit and all the open jobs, it really just comes down to, if he's not going to be the guy, then who are you going to go get?
Yeah.
Because you don't just move on for a guy from a guy for the sake of moving on from a guy. You have to have a replacement in mind. You have to have a guy that you like, that you think can guide your program back to where you want it to be. And I just don't know that there's a guy out there that they can realistically go get that's going to be able to do that right now. So assuming it's not a disastrous end to the season,
yeah,
I think you got to ride RT for another another year and see what happens. And if it's the same kind of thing next year, you take your research and you see who else is out there and make your decision then. I think RT has a lot of things working for him. I think he can recruit the top players. Like you said, you got Trey Johnson. I think the players love him. I think that, the parents of recruits will really like him and what he stands for and the things that he does. But at a certain point, you have to look at the inconsistencies and say, why can't we just put a full season together? Injuries are injuries. They happen in every sport with every team. It's part of the game. You can't hang your hat on, well, if this team was just healthy all year, they would have been this. As much as I would like to say that, they could have been. Yeah, it's just you got to find ways to overcome that if you're going to be a successful head coach and lead a team for a long time. Look, like you said, if there's issues on a team, no matter what happens, what the deal is, it all falls back on the head coach. If Sark had gone, instead of making the playoff the last 2 years, if Sark had gone 8-4, 7-5, and they had a bunch of injuries and a bunch of fumble issues and were losing 20-point leads like they were in his first year, double-digit leads like they were in his first season, he's on the hot seat. Not because he's not doing his job the right way, just because things are working against him, going against the grain for him, and it's not always his fault. But at that point, you still have to be like, look, this is Texas. We have to win.
Yeah.
And I think that RT is just kind of unfortunately in that mold right now. I don't think he's the elite head coach in college basketball like Sark is in football, but it's something that you hate to see because he's such a class act. He's a great guy. He's a great coach and all the different things. It's just, you at the end of the day, you got to win basketball games and do it at a consistent level.
And I think that's, and that's really, you come back to what you said at the beginning is too. It's like, who are you going to bring in? And it doesn't feel, they went after Sampson a year or two ago and he said no. He didn't want to leave Houston. He's built something there. He's fine with what he's got. And then Jay Wright has left college basketball. I don't know why he would come back right now. I don't know if that bag, you can make the bag that's big enough. I get you can make a big bag, but at that point, is he coming in and really giving it his all and trying to win another national championship? Or is he collecting a bag and he still doesn't want to deal with the transfer portal? He still doesn't want to deal with recruiting. He doesn't want to deal with all the problems. So it maybe not be the same product of what he could do earlier. And then the name that is the only one that's really interesting is Royale Ivy after what he did in the Olympics. But that is still a place where you're going to go, we're going to bring him in. But guys, hang on. It's going to be 2 or 3 years for him to figure everything out because you just, you're who you're bringing in. If you miss on 1 or 2 names, well, we got to wait a year until we figure it out. And that's kind of where Texas at right now. It feels like we just kind of missed on a couple of names, couple people we just kind of missed on. We should have gone after this other guy. We should have spent our money a little differently. And we kind of messed up on a couple names and we can't fix that until next season. So bear with us. We screwed it up. We know we did. So the player development issue, that's going to be there no matter what. That's something you have to figure out. I don't know if it's different assistants or what it is that you have to keep changing. If you have to keep working on Rodney Terry, explaining to him that he needs to continue to change his ways to develop players a little bit more, or if it's, I don't know if you're saying you want to bring in more scouts. So there's just a lot of different issues that we can say that bad coaching has happened to a lot of different coaches. These things happen. Rodney Terry just has a very, very short leash. We all know he does. Going to the SEC, I don't think he was prepared for how the games were called either, which you can say is his fault. Most coaches don't when they go to a new conference. They teach you to play basketball, and then you realize 4 or 5 games in, crap. The way we're coaching, they just call it differently, and they're not used to the way we do it. So we can either butt our head into the wall and do what we know is right, and eventually we'll get those calls, or we can try and change everything now. Those are all difficult pieces for him. I'm still with you. I think he's going to have a 4-1 finish. It's my hope right now that they're going to step it up. If Tremont Mark, it's hard. If a Kaluma can come back and Tremont Mark can play healthy, then this is a team that has the talent on it to go 4-1 in the last 5 games. And then this conversation changes. We're all a lot happier. We're in the tournament. The conversation changes because there isn't that other name. Rex St. Charles says, I like RT too, but the issue working against him is that the team got down 15 to 20 points in several last few games, and that's being unprepared going into the game, and that's on RT and the staff. Yeah, they have had games where they have been unprepared. They've had games where they've been thoroughly outmatched early on. That's one of the issues with RT is that he has been a guy that hasn't necessarily got his team up, and that's kind of a Texas thing. And I don't mean that as a Texas coach. It's just Austin is the type of town where you can get relaxed in Austin. And sometimes it feels like guys are, living a good life. You're getting paid. You feel good about everything. And you're going to come into these games and feel like you can be cool about it and be okay. And everybody's taking their best shot at you. You're the new kid in class in the SEC. You're Texas, so everybody hates you. And so you have to come into it like that. I think RT doesn't want the guys to get too worked up. We've talked a lot about that. But the Big 12 is not with the Big 12. No, man, I appreciate that. The Houston game, and Houston's really, really good. I'll give it. Houston's really, really good. There's some differences in there as well. But Houston also, the way they played fit with the Big 12 basketball. But you're good point. But the problem with RT not getting the guys up, I get he's trying to not get them to be basically out of breath and out of time at halftime. We've talked a lot on the show about Trey Johnson, and if he's going to be, getting him into a rhythm fast enough, it feels like he's only in a rhythm like in the third to fourth quarter, and then he's gassed. So I think there's been all of those pieces. It's been difficult to get it rolling of all those pieces. And that does fall to RT. I agree. All those pieces. There are flaws in RT's game. I am just always one of the people that throwing everything out without any plan and, we'll figure it out. We're Texas seems like an awful plan. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what so many people are like, well, we'll just get another great coach. And I don't know, because you can go out and you'll get a good coach, but you'll get another Shaka Smart, who's a good coach. And once you get that, but Shaka wasn't the guy. And, there's just a number of those guys that are out there that are good coaches and they have 1 or 2 years. You can go take a shot on that. Royal Ivy is that guy. You can go get him. And I think he has every ability to be a great coach, but I don't know if he's going to be better than RT for the next 2 years. He's got to learn, he's got to live and learn a little of those pieces, being a head coach and being in college basketball. You have to learn those pieces. And then, Numa and Robert too, you're like, Texas lacks size and down low with the athletic ability. I agree. There's just not a lot of those players anymore. Like that again, I agree. If every team could get a 7-footer with athletic ability, every team would have one. There's just not that many. Garrison, that we just saw in Kentucky. I don't even know how many minutes he played against Texas. He wasn't really a factor. Garrison, that guy was like $2 million player. Texas was looking at him, and he just cost too much money for what he could do. That's the problem, is a lot of these guys that are big guys that are athletic enough, they're just not really good players, and you're paying so much to get them in. It's really difficult when you're building that roster. Everybody wants it. I think that is something you're going to have to bring up as your Texas too, international scouting, because you're trying to just bring in Americans, and you probably want to bring in some international players as well at this point, because you just got to try and find something. But that's what I'd say. If I'm really going into the offseason and Texas makes the tournament, I am making changes, but I'm making changes in the scouting department. And I'm not getting rid of Ogden either. I'm just saying I'm putting more guys in there and more brains that can sit at the table and go out and get good players that want to be part of this and want to be part of playing defense, playing offense, and being part of a great team. I just don't feel the roster construction's been there this year. And so with all the flaws, I agree, but every coach has their flaws, and there's always going to be them. So you're just got to figure out, if we could go Shayer over at Duke, everyone's like, he's great. And you're like, he's got like 7 top prospects and transfers. Of course they're good. Of course. Yes, he's a good coach. Also, he's got amazing players. Texas has good players. Jordan Pope has not been that guy. So we'll go back. We can talk about this all day. I'll defend Rodney Terry at a piece. I'll always defend him to a point of, I do think he's a good coach. I don't know who the coach is. If CDC calls me and tells me, no, there's this really great coach, that we have lined up, pull the trigger. I'm fine. I'll live on. I like Rodney Terry as a person, but I'll live on because I know that he's not a great coach right now. And maybe one day he will be, but right now he's not. So I'm fine with it. But
yeah,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's one of the things that I think has been an issue for RT as well, at least this past season, was player retention. You lost so many guys to the transfer portal. One of those guys that you would just love to have on the team this year is Dylan Mitchell, because of that athleticism, because of the ability to lob and rebound and do all those things. So, I mean, that's another thing you have to look at. You have to find a guy, and this kind of, as Naman is kind of a point to your question, you got to find a guy that's going to bring in talent from the transfer portal, and you got to find a guy that's going to keep talent at the school, which is a lot harder in basketball than it is in football because players go to the NBA so much earlier. But, when you lose some of these guys that were a key part of your team last year, it's a really big ask to come back the next year and have a whole new roster and a whole new chemistry in your locker room and all these things and put a good product on the court. And that's really been, in my mind, the biggest issue this year, alongside the injuries, is just so much turnover. You just got a completely different team. You got to coach. You got to coach them differently.
Yeah,
and that's just been the unfortunate situation.
No, and that's really too where you look at as much as you want Dylan Mitchell, he just didn't progress, and that goes into player development. You had Dylan Mitchell there. Dylan Mitchell was never a guy who could play offense and became that liability on the offensive end. And then he would disappear on defensive points because he wasn't being involved in the offense, because all they could really do was go to the basket. So as long as they stood in front of him, they could give him 2 feet space so he couldn't get around him. Those are the places where you have a guy, he's got a flaw. You got to try and get him around that flaw. The shooting has never been great at Texas. I don't know why they can't go out and get a shooter or two that I think would help everybody feel better about hitting some shots and get a smart guy. They just never seem to find that guy either. And if you ask what's the quick fix for a basketball team, I mean, there is no quick fix. The quick fixes continue to rely on Trey Johnson. I think they're finding things out a little bit more piece by piece right now, but it's really getting Kaluma back, and then if you can get Kendall Weaver back, that changes your complexion of a team. Because especially Kendall Weaver and Tremont Mark, if you put that out there, you're now talking about 2 elite defenders on the perimeter. And that really changes what you can do defensively to help out Caden Shedrick there in the post that they just don't have. And Tremont Mark hasn't been playing as well. He played his best game he's played probably this season on Saturday. If he can continue to play at that level, and then you add another defender like that, you add another guy like Kaluma that has so many different aspects to his game, then that team's a little bit better. They just haven't been healthy all season. It's not an excuse. You got to figure out a way to make it work around that. You got to peel behind it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's disappointing. And I'll tell you this: if you keep Rodney Terry, to all the boosters and donors out there, if you keep Rodney Terry, if he does well enough again, don't hamstring him and give him another $2-3 million. I know it sounds crazy. Give him, I don't know, the revenue sharing also will come in. I don't know how much of that's going to go to basketball, but look at a guy like JT Toppin at Texas Tech. It was between Texas and Texas Tech, and they offered him a bigger bag. That was what it was. He 6'9", 6'10", jump out of the gym guy. Could have been a big player for you this year. I mean, especially if you talk about not having, now if you get him, you probably don't get Arthur Kaluma, but I mean, that's where you put it. And so, those are the pieces. Is they went out, and I remember every time you'd see a name in the transfer portal to go get a big guy, you'd see it, and then you'd hear the rumors, and then the money was big somewhere else. And sometimes it's coaching and money, but the money was big somewhere else every time. So they're just gonna have to continue to build on that at Texas. But I again, as much doom and gloom, I've listened to people for the last 4 weeks say, well, we're out of the tournament. You're like, we're not out of the tournament yet. We are, and not in the big place we want to be. We want to be a 7 seed. We want to be a 6 seed with this team that we know we're not at an elite level right now. We're not going to be ranked. But I honestly think this team is as good as Mississippi State or Ole Miss or some of these other teams that are okay, but they just played a completely lackluster non-conference. And because they played nobody, their wins are better because they have 0 losses in non-conference because they didn't play anybody. The Chris Beard special, it's a lot of coaches do it. They play nobody in non-conference. And that's fine. CDC is not going to allow that. That's not a Rodney Terry decision. CDC wants to have those big market games, put Texas on national television. He wants to have those. We're going to have those. That's another piece of what some coaches don't want. But there's teams that are ranked. I think Texas is right around that realm of they're between 35 and 20 right now. If you would say best teams in the country, they're in that range. So they should be in the tournament. The question is, does somebody who's in a smaller conference and on Power 4 or someone else who's not in the SEC supersede them because they just have more wins and they have some, good wins over other teams? I get it. I'm not out on this team. They're playing not great, but that also falls into the fact that Kaluma, Jordan Pope, and Tremont Mark have all gone missing multiple times this season. And Rodney Terry's got to find a way to stop that happening and find a way to not only get the ball in Trey Johnson's hand, but get somebody else going. Because when they have 2 scores, they seem to be fine. But 1 score is not going to work for them. They need to get at least 2 guys going. All right. Why don't we talk a little bit about the college football expansion? We'll get over into that world as well. Love to know what you guys think about that as well on the text line and on the chat. If you guys have any words for the college football expansion, let me go over and check the text line. Make sure we're not ignoring anybody over there. We got our man Chan saying he wants to use "Whip It" as his entrance music. Appreciate you listening, Chan. The SEC and the Big Ten are looking around right now. They are meeting. A lot of the college football playoff committee is meeting. The SEC and Big Ten are continuing to try and take their stranglehold on college football and the college football playoff, understanding that those are the best teams. They are the teams that are going to be pushing through. They're spending the most money. They are getting the most recruits. Those are the 2 conferences that are killing it right now. So they're trying to make sure that their future is secure because, like everybody knows, there's going to be ebbs and flows and everything. The SEC football, this was probably a down year for them, even with Texas going as far as they did. It felt like it was still somewhat of a down year for SEC football because they had been so dominant. And this one felt like they were good, like a really good conference. But they felt like they were the second best conference at points this season. But they want to make sure that they are constantly them in the Big Ten. They want to push to a 14 or 16 team playoff. We've already gone to 12. They want to push it out a little bit more. But one of the big sticking points is the automatic qualifiers. Because right now it was the 4, and then I think everyone got a little upset at the fact that Boise State was an automatic qualifier and got a bye. I don't think that sat well with anybody in the power conferences. That you can move down because your conference is too even based. And I get the Big 12 wasn't good, but that's still a problem that they're having. So the new proposal would give the SEC and Big Ten 4 automatic qualifiers each. 4 each. Automatically, you're getting 4 in, which is hilarious because we know Lane Kiffin would complain that it should be 6. First thing he'll do, SEC should get 8 teams every year.
SEC should get 14. It should be an SEC tournament.
Yes, that's what it should be. 14 teams. And then 2 each from the Big 12 and ACC, and 1 to the highest ranked group of 5 champion. So it is a piece where automatic bids, the buys that they would put in now, there will be no buys if they go to 16, by the way. They push it all the way to 16, you get rid of the bye week completely. Then I think that's one of their ideas to try and squash some of the complaining about who got the bye week and who got it. I think a lot of these schools as well don't necessarily want the bye week. The coaches do, but the schools themselves want a home game because a home game is a lot of money. And so I think the schools themselves say, wait, so we're going to lose like millions and millions of dollars because we're too good that we got to buy instead of the home game? So I think that may be one of the pieces too, is that some of these schools are looking at this issue and saying we want to get rid of the buys as well. We don't want to have those in there. But this feels 12 felt like it was too many anyway. I was in favor of the 8-team playoff. I thought that was enough teams in there. I get you more football, more playoff football is good, but how many games we're putting these guys through now? And even the regular season thing, it hurt it a little bit, but I don't think it hurt it as much. I think it helped it because it now meant that your season's not over in week 6 for some of these teams, week 7, that these teams are like, well, our season's over. Why are we still watching? So I think you kept teams alive a little bit longer. So it did help out. Now, it didn't make every loss feel as dramatic. And we know the reason college football is because the stakes are what makes you watch, right? That's why we talk about the All-Star game, why nobody watches the All-Star games. There's no stakes. And in college football, it was for years and years. Every game, everything was on the line. Every loss meant your season was over, especially back in the BCS days, and there was 2 teams. And, man, you lost one game, it's over. Mike, why even show up? It's over now. So I get the concept, trying to expand it a little bit more. I'm not, but the 16 feels like, and especially this quick, I think I'd be fine with 14 in like 10 more years, and then 16 and 10 more. And if we just spaced it, this feels like we're going to be at 64 like really, really soon. Doesn't it feel like they're just going to expand it and expand it and just be like, look, we'll regular season will be 7 games and then we'll go to the playoffs. Like we no one cares about the regular season anymore. Let's just have a tournament and we'll go from there. It feels, that's what my worry with it is we're expanding it so fast, so quick. And maybe it's just the people that wanted 16 from the beginning still complaining, and they're just pushing to try and get it through. I don't know if you need more expansion. I get that they're trying to fix the automatic bids, but I don't know if you need more expansion.
No, I'm against any more expansion. My solution to the problem would just be get rid of the bye weeks. Give all the top 6 seeds home playoff games, and all 4 teams that had a bye week lost their first playoff game.
Yeah, didn't work.
Like that's not good for the product. I do not like the idea of expanding to 14 or 16. I think it's diluted enough already. In terms of how it affects the regular season and the stakes and all that kind of stuff, I think you can make an argument both ways. You can make the argument that it makes regular season games not as important, and you can still lose a couple or whatever. But like you said on the back end, it also gives those other teams a second chance at life. Like Ole Miss lost to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And, they still had a shot down the stretch, and all they had to do was beat Florida, and Jackson Dart threw 3 interceptions in 2 plays.
Yeah. I mean, it really falls into this world. Notre Dame lost to Northern Iowa and played for a national championship.
Yeah.
And what your feelings about that are will tell you how you like the college football playoff. If your feelings are that should never happen ever, then you want a 14 playoff. And if your feelings are, yeah, that was one bad game, they shouldn't be sacrificed because they're a great team, they won a tournament to get to where they got to, then you're fine with the playoff. I'm with you. I thought it added in. Added in a lot. I thought it added in a lot of pieces to make the regular season better. But yeah, I keep going because I'm with you. I mean, you can't. I don't know how you make the tournament work, but I'm not in favor of more.
No, look, you have to draw the line somewhere. I think that 12 was already too much to begin with. I think they should have expanded it to 8 at the most. But the Northern Illinois thing is a great point as well. Like, you can now afford to have a bad week as a top contender and still survive, and you don't necessarily have to be perfect. And people complain about the urgency and the stakes and all that stuff in college football now. But the ratings don't drop off in the NFL when you can go 8-8 and still make the playoffs potentially and win a Super. I mean, you can win a Super Bowl if you squeak into the playoffs. And
just tell Eli Manning, man.
Yeah, the ratings are still through the roof. So I don't particularly like that argument. It's just, at the end of the day, best solution: get rid of the bye weeks. Give the top 6 seeds a home playoff game. Sark raved about the home playoff game in Austin. He thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I agree with him. I was there in the press box. It was a very different, very cool atmosphere. Great for the university, great for the fans. Getting schools in there that you don't normally get in there, like Clemson, is so cool for the whole program and for the city and all that stuff. So yeah, just No
But
more
I mean,
bye
because
weeks.
if you have 12, you still have to have buys because it doesn't work out. Like you can't have 6 because it goes from 12 to 6 to 3. That's a problem. So you have to add more if you get rid of the buys because you can't. Like there has to be some buys in there. Is the issue is with 12 is you can't. It's not an even bracket.
Well, either way, I think that the other. Sorry to cut you off, but I think the other thing there is, if even if you have a couple of bye weeks, you got to find a way to whittle it down and make things more certain. And I think that one way that you do that also is to get rid of the automatic qualifiers just altogether, because there's no way that a school like Clemson, at least in my opinion, there's no way a school like Clemson should have been in ahead of, maybe not Ole Miss, but like Alabama or another team that would have given a better matchup. Or, Boise State, as much as I love to see them have a chance at a national championship, you're going to get a better game against Penn State with somebody else in there that's a better football team that just happens to play in a harder conference. And the one Power 4 team that Boise State played, they lost to Oregon. And then they played Penn State and they lost again. I don't think that's a shocker. So get rid of the automatic qualifiers. Don't expand anymore. Minimize the bye weeks if you can't get rid of them completely.
No, I agree with you. And that's why I'm trying to you try and figure it out. And I know that, their solution is let's get rid of the bye weeks. I think they're with you on that. And so they want to get rid of the bye weeks, but you can't do that at 12, and they're not going backwards. And that's where they're now trying to push to 14 was, okay, well, then it's only 2 bye weeks. It's only 2 teams that get buys, and we can make that a little easier. Or you go to 16 and you get – but now you're talking about more and more games being played. So you're adding another round, I believe, to it if you do that. I don't know. Actually, maybe not. I don't know if you're adding another round. But you're placing in – now you're just putting in more teams. I think 16-0 buys is probably where we'll end up in the next couple of years because of that issue. But it is – I mean, and it is just weird. Naman brings up the good point that the coaches are complaining about the spring games now. And it just feels like there's this weird part where nobody, like everything that was existed before, they're trying to scrape away at. And the spring game, I get they're saying other people are scouting your players in the spring game. I don't, it feels like they already have tape on a lot of that. I know
they're scouting you during the regular season.
Yeah. And I get you're saying, well, I have a freshman and they're watching, but who's really going out and scouting? And that's where you're going to spend your money in the transfer portal is a guy you saw play 20 minutes in a spring game. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it's happening more and I'm just naive to it. I don't know if the spring game, I think that coaches could hate more having to do things in public where they can't really call plays. They call them practice. It's just a waste of their time because they don't want to show off what they're actually doing. And then they go, well, we can't, we're just giving them plays we run. So we can't, now we got to call like a whole fake thing to do the spring game and then get everybody's head all big because now I got to deal with a kid who caught 6 passes in a spring game and thinks he should be playing week 1. But the only reason you caught 6 is because I benched the first 4 wide receivers and you were the only one that was left out there. So I get that there's issues it probably brings up they'd like to not have. I think you should still have it. I think, at a certain point, it's about the fans because, again, all this money comes into the game because of the fans, and it's a great way to give back to the fans in that spring game. They do the activations and have the autographs and all those other things that I think are really good for your program to connect with your fan base. So I think you should do it on the fact that it is – I get you're trying to win, and sometimes you lose sight of the fact that none of this exists if there's not people watching the games. But you should try and give back a little bit. I think that's why you should have the spring game. And, I get you can make that argument for the 16-team playoff, let more and more teams in. It'll let more smaller teams in. But we saw what happened. It's going to let more – it's okay. We let 4 more teams in. Alabama's in. Ole Miss is in. South Carolina's in. That's 3 teams who would have climbed in if you added 3 more teams, right? Mm-hmm. Or added 4 more teams. So you take it from 12 to 16. 3 more SEC big schools get in. And then somebody else like that. But that's my point. Is it was literally like SMU maybe. Or somebody like that. That's who sneaks into it if you're talking about adding 4 more teams. Was 3 more SEC schools. Which I'm not against adding more SEC schools. But at a certain point, the theory of, well, if we add 16 teams, we'll get more variety of conferences. You won't. because the conferences are ranked about who they play, and the schools that play good teams are going to get ranked higher. Go ahead.
Sorry, but another thing that kind of got screwed up in this whole scenario last year was that, Texas and Penn State both lost their conference championship games, and they had easier roads in the college football playoff than Oregon and Ohio State just because of the automatic qualifiers.
Yeah.
Oregon got screwed in that whole scenario. Like, obviously that they lost to Ohio State in that, so the whole thing just didn't work. I know they had been planning it for a long time, but it felt like they just kind of cobbled it together like, oh, this will be fair.
Yeah.
And then they just threw it out there. So they got to figure out a way to make it more even and give teams like Oregon and, teams that run the table in the regular season a reward. Don't make them play Ohio State, who ends up going to win the national championship in their first game. That just doesn't make sense.
No, yeah, that's I feel like too was part of it is they try to put things together without running through the tournament. So they put it together and just said, okay, you're a 1 through 12. Here's the seeds. And he said, all right, do you see how those match up? And they go, oh, we're not worried about that. We just ranked them, and we didn't care about what the actual product we're putting out there is. Yeah, I agree. I don't like the 1 through 4 qualifier of conference championships. I know they want to make conference championships matter because, again, there's a lot of money tied into that. As much as, this is always the argument between fans and business that, well, why do you have a conference championship game? They're the worst because you make a ton of money because Dr. Pepper sponsors it or State Farm or Allstate or whoever puts millions and millions of dollars into your pockets because you're playing that game. So they're going to keep playing it because you don't take away money ever. You leave that money on the table. So I get the concept of how do you make that game matter when it doesn't, they're both going to the conference, they're both going to the playoffs. They're both going to be a part of it. So this game doesn't really mean as much. How do you make it matter more? Well, that team gets a bye because they get that piece or they get the higher seed. But that only really works for the Big Ten and the SEC. And everybody else, they jump over teams that are much better than them. It screws up how you're going to rank your bracket because now you got messed up games. I don't know. I don't know if there is a real perfect solution to it. I do agree with you. I'd get rid of the bye weeks because it is. They didn't work. You lose money for your schools that are doing well, and everybody lost. Like it didn't seem like it was a great advantage to have those guys get an extra week off and try and keep their mentality going. So all those pieces together, I think they need to fix something. I don't like it expanding. I just don't see any other way that it's going to get to no bye weeks though, because they're not going back to 8. That's not even on the table. There's no discussion of it. Zero discussion of going back to 8 schools and making it to where it's an easy tournament and everybody's happy. They're pushing forward. And so I think 16 is probably more likely than 14 if they do it, because then they can say we want to get rid of the bye week. And so we did. And that seems to make more sense to me in the world. It's where you get into that world. And the problem is none of these problems I have with it are that it's going to ruin the regular season. I know that's the prevailing concept. I think this season showed that it did not. I think this season showed that there's still so much more drama because now so many more teams are involved in it late, as opposed to you can watch 3 games on the last weekend of football, and that's the only games that matter. Everything else is already pretty much decided. I get all of that. I'm just not buying into it full force that this is the best way. I still think 8 teams was plenty. It'll be interesting if they go to 16. When do we get our first 65-0 win in the college football playoffs? When somebody just should not be in it whatsoever, but they just breeze through an easy schedule, and we'll get that. Or we get that world where now Florida State gets in and gets trounced because Jordan Travis got hurt. That'll happen now because now you can't kick him out for it because there's 16 teams. There's no real excuse to do it anymore. It'll be interesting to see that first one that really shows that this is too many teams. I thought we all left this season thinking that was too many, that there was teams that didn't need to be in it that were in it. Thought we all walked away from it thinking that. I mean, even Arizona State played Texas tough. that felt much more like a Texas collapse and an Arizona State comeback because it was 2 or 3 plays that just didn't, that brought them back. So it didn't necessarily feel like that was an evenly matched game. It just Cam Scatterbo, this guy decided he was going to run roughshod and no one was going to stop him. But I don't know. I'm not in favor. If you want to let us know, I appreciate you, Nauman Roberts, really going in with the playing more games. I get you. The spring game thing I don't get. I just genuinely don't get it. I get that you don't want to play over and over again a ton more games. Like when you're talking about adding 3 or 4 more games to your season every year, I get why that would bother you, but you're not complaining about those games because they're games you want to be in. And so the spring game, you're not giving up that practice either. You're going to scrimmage and practice and do it anyway. You just don't want people around it. Which I get, but sometimes you got to give a little bit back. And look, if you really, really, really want to get mad about it, then make a rule that none of those games can be on ESPN. If that's what you're worried about, they're only on local TV. Put it on KView, put it on KXAN, wherever you want to put it, wherever they put it. They're on local TV, and local people can watch them. And look, the tapes will still get out, but they won't be on ESPN where anybody can just go click on there. And that tapes could exist before ESPN had all those games anyway. If anybody really wanted to go do that, still do the game and just tell them not to put it on ESPN, which I know ESPN would hate. But if that's really what you're worried about, which I don't think it is. I think that's all a smoke screen because you don't want to say what you're really worried about. But if that's really what you're worried about, then go ahead. Just don't put it on there. I think there's an easy solution. You should always give back to the fans because that's the point. It's what the problem is with All-Star Weekend right now for the NBA is the players do not care about it. And every solution people keep putting out does not seem to have the fans in mind either. It's always just this tough part of trying to go, man, give something back. I get it. You're making millions and millions of dollars. You deserve all that money because you're earning it. But this is part of it. So give back to fans because this is part of that millions of dollars you're earning. Let's take another quick break so we can go and wrap up the rest of the show. We'll see. We'll see if we want to go on Mel Kiper or Cowboys. We'll decide which one we want to go to. If we want to talk Quinn Ewers or if we want to talk Cowboys when we come back here. We'll play a quick break and come back here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. It's Open Gym here, 4 to 6 p.m. Talking Texas football, talking college football expansion. Myself, Matt Galatzan, being back here in just a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Dan Covert with my wife, Hayden. Welcome to Covert BK.
Our newest location in the gorgeous Hill Country includes Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, and hundreds of pre-owned and certified vehicles for you to choose from. We have 3 service departments that are ready to take care of your car, truck, or SUV with 86 service bays to accommodate any repair and get you in and out quickly. Come visit us today to select the vehicle you've been dreaming about.
Covert, born and raised in Austin.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations. We've been providing custom electronic systems for Central Texas for more than 36 years. And
Old man, I think they all know who you are and what your company does. This is Camilla McKay. The old man believes in big fun and big ideas. He can make dreams come true, so why not dream big? I've been up in Boston, but I know the old man and all his friends and fellow radio heads have been spreading the holiday spirit here in Texas. Why should we stop there? Keep spreading the good feelings all over. Audiovisual Consultations carries all major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And you don't have to leave your house. Just like Santa, they deliver the gifts to you.
Yeah, I like that, kid. Throw a party, hang out with your friends, catch a concert.
That's all fun and good, but can we get back to the business? You can give us a call at 512-255-8678 or visit our website at avconsultations.com for some cool electronics.
Oh, now you're forgetting something.
And as always, hug your kids. We only pretend to be annoyed. Watch some games with your friends and make love to whoever the hell you want.
Say hello to Jason and the gang over at Relax the Back. They embrace a holistic approach for a healthier lifestyle based on 35 years, folks, of proven expertise, and my back couldn't be happier. Their motto is live wellness, and folks, they can transform your routine, your daily routine, into something very, very special if you have back pain. If you're struggling with thoracic problems, if you've got hip problems, if you've got lumbar problems, please go over to one of their stores. They got 2 great locations, and find out a chair or a recliner or a sofa that's going to fit you and going to make your life a whole lot better. I've got this office chair right here that I've been sitting in for years, and I love it. 2 locations, folks, at the Hill Country Gallery across from Whole Foods and in North Austin at the Gateway Shopping Center across from the Container Store. Live pain-free like the buck and relax the bat.
SendTexTickets.com. If you're in the market for tickets to any sporting event, any concert, any Broadway show, anything live coming to town, you got to head over to SendTexTickets.com. The best seats to all of the biggest events, not just here in Austin, but all over the state and all over the country as well. It's so easy to use. Just log on your phone or computer to SendTexTickets.com. All of their tickets are 100% guaranteed, and they will be delivered right to your phone or computer. So simple to use, and you're also helping to support a local business every time you shop. SendTexTickets.com. So if you want to be at the biggest events in sports and entertainment, there's only one place to go. It's SendTexTickets.com.
Back here on Texas Sports Unfiltered, talking here in Open Gym. Myself, Matt Galatzan from Texas Longhorns on SI. I was about to put on the Texas-Houston baseball game, but what I am seeing, Danny Davis is correct. Danny Davis, reporter there for Austin American Statesman for Texas, says today's Texas-Houston baseball game has been canceled. They are apparently pushing that off because of the weather. So apparently there is no Texas baseball game tonight. For anybody who is getting ready to watch that or head out to the game, sorry to tell you. They push it up an hour trying to get it to work. I guess the weather is not going to cooperate, and they don't want to put pitchers out there and try and hurt your arms by having to go back out and warm up and deal with all that stuff. Second game of the season. Maybe not the best idea. Go ahead and push that off. I would have liked to seen him to play tonight against Houston, but I get the weather just not permitting. They will now wait until the weekend and play Dartmouth this weekend to kick off their season. But that is the report coming down from Danny Davis. I just saw on X that Texas will cancel their game tonight. Texas baseball canceling their game with Houston. So no game, no baseball game tonight. Why don't we, Matt, since we got about 15 minutes left in the show or so, let's talk Cowboys because we talked a lot of Texas today. We'll get back to Texas talk tomorrow. But let's talk a little Cowboys because this is something that I was looking at when you start talking about the Cowboys. We've talked about a little bit of the running back situation, and there was a new mock draft that I want to get into tomorrow too. But a lot of mock drafts have Ashton Jeanty going to Dallas because he'll probably be there at the 12th pick. We know he's insanely talented. He didn't look as good when you got to the playoffs. He played really well against Oregon early in the season. He was putting up insane numbers throughout, but against a competition that was not necessarily a ton of NFL caliber talent, playing in the conference he's in at Boise State. So you start to look at it, okay, if you don't go Ashton Jeanty at 12, if you don't feel that's a piece, that there's still so many other pieces on this team to fill, where do you look, where do you push to find out what you can build if you're a running back room, instead of just trusting that Zeke is going to be the guy? Getting to know that Zeke, they let him go at the end of the year, and he ended up with the Chargers, I think, at the end of the season. Rams, maybe. I don't know. He went somewhere, I think, in LA. But if you can't end up with the running back room you had last year, Rico Dotto is a free agent as well. So you have to decide what you're going to do there. You lost Tony Pollard last year. Rico Dotto, who you probably should have some point in the middle of this season signed to an extension because you could have got him for half of what you'll get him for now. You probably could have signed a 3-year, $6 million deal, something like that, for earlier in the season. You just got, no, we're extending you. Don't worry about it. We think you're going to be there. We have the faith in you that we made you our lead back, and we have all those pieces. But when you start looking around, what is actually available for the Cowboys to fill their running back position? And this is excluding a trade, which you can always make a trade, but the Texans did it last year, bringing in Joe Mixon, which was a huge addition. So there you can do it. I don't feel that they will. I don't think they're going to, but you can do that. When we start to look at who else is available in the free agent class and it's storming out there in Houston. I feel like we're about to get that, aren't we?
Yeah. Apologies in advance if I lose power. Houston has a notoriously terrible power grid, but I think I'll be okay.
I think Texas has a notoriously terrible power grid. So we go there. If you look at the running backs in the draft, it's a little bit of a drop after Ashton Janty. You still try and get a Marion Hampton, but you're going to have to maybe trade up to go get him to make sure you get him. You have to see how it is. He's a second-round pick of Marion Hampton probably. Caleb Johnson from Iowa is there. You can get the Judkins from Ohio State. You could go Kim Scadaboo. You could go with Cam and put him there. But all of those guys, too, if you bring in that rookie, you're probably not going to try and put him out there, or you should not try to put him out there by himself. So if you say, we got to get him in a backfield, now the easy choice, draft a guy and draft one of the top 5 running backs, top 5-6 running backs, because I think once you get past Cam, it really starts to dwindle down. And that's when you're starting to worry about guys that you don't know. They're not guys that are probably going to be impact players in their rookie year as a running back. And there will be 1 or 2 in there because they'll be in the great system, which there always is. But in that Cowboy system, I don't know if it'll be there. Even though they want to run the ball, they want to push that. I don't know if that'll be the case. So you start looking at the free agents. Now, Rico Dowdle is on that list. Rico Dowdle is one of the top 5 free agent running backs probably in this class, which is worrisome if you're the Cowboys. So I would still say I would keep Rico Dowdle. But let me give you some of the names that are free agents this offseason, and then we'll get Matt's of where he would go if Jerry Jones calls him up, because who knows? Maybe you'll run into Jerry Jones at a bar. Maybe you'll see him on at your skyline now, and you can go down and give him a piece of your mind. Some of the running backs, Najee Harris is going to be a free agent from the Steelers. You can look at Aaron Jones, a running back that is a bit over the hill at this point. He went to the Vikings, but really just wasn't the same player that he was for Green Bay. J.K. Dobbins, who had a resurgence with the Chargers. However, he is also very, very injury prone. Had a resurgence, but that's a lot of Harbaugh as well put in there. You have Nick Chubb. After his injury, was not the same player. Could he get back to form? Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Warren, Jordan Mason, Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell. Not a lot of names that you're thinking about that are going to be top name free agent running backs. Matt, if you're running the Cowboys and you're trying to find your running back position, are you going to try and go Ashton Janty first round? Are you a second round running back guy, or are you just playing in free agency and let's go?
So I think that the Najee Harris thing could be interesting if they elected to go that route. History shows us that they won't. So I saw a mock draft. I believe it was Sunday. It might have been Saturday. I don't know if this is the same one that you looked at, so please tell me if it is, and I'll change. I'll say something else. But KD Drummond.
The one Daniel Jeremiah just put his out today, so if you saw it Sunday, it wasn't us.
Okay, perfect. Well, KD Drummond at Cowboys Wire put out a very interesting mock draft in which the Cowboys make multiple trade backs. First, they trade back to 17, and then they trade back to I think it's 20 or 23. But they trade back multiple times, pick up some extra picks. And in this mock draft, they draft 2 running backs, Caleb Johnson from Iowa being one of them, which I absolutely love. I think that, I believe he led the Big Ten in rushing last year, or at least he was up there. He's an extremely talented running back, over 1,500 yards rushing on 240 attempts, 21 touchdowns. And then the other one is a very interesting name, all the way down in round 6, where you might not find something that you're looking for necessarily, but there's still some guys who you never know. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco was a guy like this. And last year he was one of the best running backs in college football. This year his team wasn't as good, so he didn't get the same sort of production, but that's Ollie Gordon. So if you go that route, you get 2 guys who you can throw in there, and then maybe you end up bringing Rico Dowdle back, and all of a sudden you got kind of a young core that Rico Dowdle can lead in year 1, and then you kind of slowly integrate these guys in more and more. I think that's one route you could go. I don't like the idea of picking Genty first, not because he's, I don't think he's a good player, or even because of the whole stigma around drafting running backs early, which I don't totally buy into. It's just, it is hard to justify that kind of value that early on when a lot of times these guys are not the same player on their second contract. They're not all going to be Saquon Barkley. But the only reason I really don't like that pick at number 12 for Dallas as a whole, and I'd still do it if, like, I wouldn't be mad if they did it necessarily, but I think that you just have so many things on your roster that you need to fill that I like what Drummond did here in this mock draft and trading back and getting more draft capital, and then maybe going after, the North Carolina kid or Cam Scatabo or Caleb Johnson and Ollie Gordon late in round 6. So there's a lot of different routes you can take. I think at the end of the day, you have to go fix this in the draft. History is not kind to running backs on their second contract, so there's no reason to believe that they're going to find one of these guys like Najee Harris and he's going to have a huge impact on the roster, no matter who else they put around him.
No, and Najee Harris hasn't done a ton on a team that kind of wants to be based around running, that hasn't had a quarterback. And, maybe if he had a better quarterback, then it opens things up. I know there's all the theories, but I'm with you. I think this is you have to use it in the draft. And the problem with the Cowboys is they're not necessarily the team that's going to trade up to go get a guy they want to get. And so if you want to go get a guy, you have to draft by position instead of best available. I'm with you. I think that there's a few guys up at top. I don't mind Caleb Johnson at all. I don't mind that pick. Amari Hampton, I like him as well. So either one of those I'm really fine with in the second round. I think if you go that way. And Ollie Gordon is a good pull of an interesting name that was going into the season thought of could be one of the best players, like a Heisman candidate going into the season. And it just didn't work out. But how much of that is Oklahoma State having a ton of issues right now because Gundy is just kind of fighting against the new system of college football? And do you look at Ollie Gordon and say, I know, he had the DUI, so you can look into that, and that is going to be something that'll hurt him as well. But he stayed at Oklahoma State, and even though I'm sure he got paid, he could have got more money somewhere else for sure. He could have definitely cashed in on that. So is that something you look at as a positive in today's world to say, this is a guy who stuck around because he believed in what he was doing? Now, it didn't work out. He did not have the season, but maybe there's still something in there if we put him on our team. And if we can get him in the 6th, 7th round, that's somebody that you really feel pretty good about adding in. It's also always fun to add somebody in who stays a Cowboy. If you can get a Cowboy to a Cowboy, that's just a fun transition for everybody. But I'm with you. This does feel, it was really, I brought this up, and it was because I looked at the free agents in this year's running back class, and it's just, there's not even one free agent running back that you go, that's the fix. Go break the bank and go bring that guy. That guy doesn't exist in this year's free agency. I don't know if he's existed in many free agencies. Most people don't want to lose those guys. That's why the Texans went out and traded for Joe Mixon, because they felt that they could go bring in somebody in that piece. And maybe that's what the Cowboys, I just don't think they're going to do that. That does not feel like they've made big trades. I don't feel like they're going to make one for a running back. I don't even know who would you put on that list right now of a running back.
I can't think of anybody
that is available, but good enough. But it's like later on. I mean, maybe Jonathan Taylor would be about as close as you could get to a name where Indy, maybe through all the contract disputes and everything else and what they're trying to do, that may be a name that if you really, but you're not getting him for cheap, he's going to cost you to bring in. So this feels very much like it's going to be you have to draft one. And I just hope last year you could have taken Jonathan Brooks. We know it ended up, he came back and hurt himself again, and that's just difficult now. But I think at some point you have to go out and look, you can go that and then trade a late round pick, go back, and you missed Roschon Johnson in the draft. If the Bears are not keeping him, go get a Roschon Johnson. They're not using him, and try and give up a late round pick and see if you can get him if Ollie Gordon's gone or if there's no one else you want. There's guys that are out there that you may be able to get a team that has a running back that would rather take somebody new and you give them a new home. You might be able to find that guy out there as well. But if you do not deal with running back in this year's draft, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, it feels like it's going to be downhill. All like you're basically not giving yourself a chance if you are going to not get a running back in this year's draft. And seeing that free agency class, seem to really double that down on it. You're also, I mean, you don't sign free agents. We know that, even that, but the fact there's none there, I'd also definitely keep Rico Dottle. I would have paid him already. I get you're probably not going to try and pay too many guys before you pay Micah Parsons, or maybe you pay everybody before to figure out where your money's at. There is new reports that the NFL, the salary cap could take a huge boost in the next couple of years because the way they're changing ratings is ratings now. I believe they're going to try and work it into a deal with smart TVs to get ratings directly off of smart TVs now is the plan, which the NFL assumes is going to drastically boost their ratings because people are not watching in traditional ways. So they feel that if you're able to get a more, accurate assessment of who's watching football and Sunday Ticket and all those other things, they feel it's going to help them out a lot. So the theory is that within the next couple of years, that'll be done. And then the ratings will boost even more, which means the salary cap will go even further up. So there is some GMs that are salivating, thinking I can sign some back-ended deals and it won't get me in cap hell. Now, how much cash Jerry Jones has on him is a question at this point in time. We saw that the Giants are selling off part of their team to get cash to sign free agents because it is very important now. And, if Jerry Jones wants to be the big spender, I get he has went from one of the richest owners to lower on the poll now. But that's a lot of times guaranteed money, and you got to put that guaranteed money in escrow. So you got to have a lot of money when you sign somebody to one of those really big contracts. You have to have a lot of cash, not money that you will make, money that you can put up front. Signing bonus, you got to put up a lot of that stuff up front, and so it's difficult to go in free agency and get anybody. I don't know there's not even a guy in the running back class right now. This feels like for Dallas, it's draft or nothing.
Yeah, and it felt like that last year, and they didn't do anything. So
that's my point. Is it feels very dangerous because they didn't do it last year, and now we're going into another year. Did they learn from their mistakes? If you just take right now off the top of your head, do you believe that Jerry Jones will pick a running back in this year's draft?
Yes, but again, I thought that last year. Yes.
Okay.
I think that after the uproar that they didn't pick a guy last year, and you saw what happened on the field as a result of that. I mean, they were one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL until Dowdle kind of caught fire at the very end of last season over the last couple of weeks. But if you are that stubborn where you can't see that, yeah, I know that these guys on the radio, or I know that these quote unquote experts online were trashing us and we think we're smarter than them. Well, maybe you're not, because you saw the product on the field. So if they do that again and they double down, then I think it's just going to be more of the same. I mean, I know you got to fix other parts of your roster, but that is a part of your roster that you have to fix.
Yeah.
The Eagles won the Super Bowl this year. In part, they had a phenomenal roster. They had the best offensive line in football.
Because what did they add?
They had an amazing running game. They had the number 2 rushing attack in the NFL. Saquon Barkley damn near broke every record in the book. And it's follow the Eagles blueprint.
Yeah.
Just do it.
There were running backs last year. You didn't call Derrick Henry. You didn't call him. Not that you didn't.
How much of a difference would that have made?
You did not call him. You didn't pick up the phone. All right, we got to get out of here. Appreciate everybody hanging with us there on the chat, on the text line. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us. We'll be back tomorrow. If you did not hear the news, baseball tonight has been canceled. Softball tonight has been canceled for Texas as they prepare for the weather. Matt can tell you it's already bad in Houston, but we will get it going. We'll be back tomorrow. Remember, Texas Sports Unfiltered kicks off now at its new time at 7 a.m., and we are here every weekday, open gym, 4 to 6 p.m. Myself, Patrick Davis, and Matt Galatzan from Texas Longhorns on my side, reminding you to be safe, be kind, keep your underwear clean,